Hello, if you want to watch exclusive lemon content on What If Naruto, then go to my Boosty. The first link in the description here contains such hot stories for adults, such as What If Naruto was a daddy for Sarada, or Kushina and Mikoto vulgar Naruto mommies. Follow the link and enjoy. I'm waiting for you.
The village of Konoha had just spent several years at war with the other shinobi nations, so everyone was very happy to enjoy a quiet day. However, the story was different at the Okaji's tower. Everyone, except the stubborn and confident Okaji, was extremely nervous about the recent reports they had received from their boarders. It said that one of the three Biju was heading straight for Konoha and would destroy everything in its path. It would arrive by nightfall, and that frightened the council. How could they stop him? And which of the 9 was it? The Okage, Arashir Uzumaki, was worried for a different reason. His wife was giving birth to their first child at that moment. To say he was nervous would be like saying a snowball was melting in a volcano, a grave understatement. The Council of Elders called an emergency meeting and informed the village's shinobi about the demon on its way. Suddenly, one of the explorers burst into the room shouting his infamous name. "It's Kubi 4! The Ninetales is coming!" At this announcement, several curses echoed through the room. One particularly loud voice exclaimed, "The Ninetales! How can we fight that demon? We're all doomed. We should leave before it arrives." "Shut up! You're a Konoha shinobi, so stay here and protect this village and your family alongside the others," the Okage shouted. Then another person from the hospital entered. The medical shinobi informed Arashir that her son had been born and was named Naruto, and that both mother and child were doing well. The fourth Okage sighed in relief at the news as he received various cheers and congratulations. Now that his worries were over, he addressed the council. "Well, let's get ready to kick Kubi's butt and send him back where he came from." Last night, the day might have started peacefully with birdsong and quiet, carefree conversation. However, that night was different. It was filled with screams and shrieks as the kitsune arrived at the edge of the forest surrounding Konoha. Then the demon appeared before their eyes. It was enormous. It towered over the forest with a ferocious grin. It was the nine-tailed fox in all its glory, its red fur gleaming, its tails whipping and destroying everything in its path. No matter how many brave attacks the shinobi launched, they had no effect on the kitsune. Just when all hope seemed lost, a giant, dark shadow appeared before the kitsune, blocking its path. Gamabunta, the Lord of Toad's Summoning 6, stood there staring intently, then took a puff from his pipe. "So you're the Kubi," he declared. Above him stood 3 figures, the fourth Okage, his wife, and their newborn son, all staring intently at the kitsune. "Are you sure about this? Because I'm not sure this is right," the fourth thought. "Yes, it's the only way," his wife replied, handing him their child. When he jumped from Gamabunta and began making 7 hand gestures, she turned and said to the toad, "Well, I don't like it, but it seems there's no other option." "Come on, Bunta, that's Gamabunta for you," he replied as they jumped forward to distract the kitsune, who was eyeing the toad with great greed. Meanwhile, on the ground next to the room and her son, 2 shadows landed. The younger of the 2 spoke first. "Are you sure about this, Sensei? Couldn't there be another way?" "Yes, Kakashi, I'm sure this is the only way to stop him. But you both let her live and use me instead," the older shadow replied. "It's your decision to do this. You should know how stubborn she is." "Salutobi." They nodded. "Just one request. Please treat him like the hero he is for having to deal with a demon inside him." "I'm so sorry." He spoke his last words to the lump at his feet as he finished the final hand gesture. "Shurin Fujin, seal of death," he shouted. With that, Gamabunta vanished. He, his wife, and the kitsune stopped moving and collapsed lifeless to the ground. Kakashi and Sarutobi watched in silence as the seal appeared on the newborn's belly. Then they bent down to pick him up. But something was holding the blankets in place, causing them to weep uncontrollably. In his final moments, The fourth Hokage reached out and grasped the blankets that protected his only child from the elements. As they walked back to the village with the child in their arms, the villagers came out to hear what had happened, and once again, silence fell, punctuated by tears. Sarutobi said, "This child must be treated as a hero for carrying the demon within, and from this moment on, I am once again the third Kage." The villagers were not happy that the child was alive. "Kill the Kyubi child, spawn of the demon," shouted another. Sarutobi yelled over them, "I am going to enact a new law. No one will ever speak of the Kyubi again, nor of this night, under penalty of degradation or death, depending on the severity of the offense." Then he left and headed to the nearest orphanage, where he left Naruto with the others. Upon reaching Okaji's tower, he finally saw it collapse. "This will cost you dearly, Naruto. Please don't hate the villagers for their stupidity, though I won't blame you when you're older." Then he turned to paperwork, Okaji's greatest rival. 13 years later, 4 figures arrived at the gates of Konoha. They looked exhausted, as if they'd been running a marathon all week without breaks or water. The figures were easily recognizable by their different looks and clothing styles. The adult wore all black with a tan or light green vest and a blue mask that covered most of his lower face, his headband pulled down over his left eye. His hair was gray and stood out at an angle that seemed to defy gravity. This man was Kakashiak, who was now a honing one. The only girl on the team had bright pink hair that matched her red dress, which she wore with a headband holding her hair in a style she thought was cute, and she kept glancing at the dark-haired boy in the group. This boy was Sasuke Uchiha. He wore gray shorts with a dark blue shirt that had a red and white fan symbol on the back representing his clan. His black hair was neat, but it looked like he hadn't put any effort into it. He wore a melancholic expression that showed no emotion beyond annoyance at the pink-haired Kunoichi. Tu and his blonde-haired companion, who was talking aloud to himself about how much ramen he was going to eat when they arrived. The blonde boy was Naruto Uzumaki. His blonde hair stood on end no matter how hard he tried to flatten it, which wasn't very difficult. He thought he looked cool. He wore a bright orange jumpsuit with red swirls on the shoulders, which was his personal choice for a clan symbol. "Hey Sasuke, when we get back, do you want to go on a date? I know a really cool barbecue restaurant," the Kunoichi asked. That wasn't Sasuke's answer. "I'll go with you, Sakura-chan," Naruto said. "No way," Naruto exclaimed, punching him in the stomach and storming off after Sasuke, who was already walking back to his clan's house, while Kakashi declared he had to see the look Keiji and teleported away. Now that Naruto was alone again, he removed the mask he always wore, the one that made him look like a useless idiot. In reality, he was extremely intelligent and had great control over the third chakra. But if he had shown it earlier, the villagers would have tried harder to kill him. As he passed by them, most of them looked at him coldly and said things like, "Kyubi spawn, you demon brat, you should curl up and die." But he was used to it by now. He discovered the existence of the Kyubi almost a year ago, right after failing the Genino exam. For the third time, a teacher he thought he could trust tricked him into stealing a forbidden scroll. 5. And when he found it, it revealed the truth about the Kyubi he carried within him. He would have left the village right then and there, but something happened that he never thought would happen. Flashback. Naruto was sitting there panting after working so hard to master Kejibunin, when Mizuki, who had told him about the scroll, appeared in a tree above his head. Meanwhile, his other teacher, Iruka, appeared alongside Naruto. Naruto took the scroll. "Mizuki used you to get the scroll. It contains forbidden abilities that would endanger the entire village," Iruka told Naruto. "I don't think he cares about you, Naruto. Nobody cares about you, but he's acting all right, isn't he?" Mizuki stated with a touch of nonchalance. "Hey, what do you mean? Why do they hate me so much? What did I do to them?" "You didn't do anything wrong, Naruto. I don't hate you." "Shut up, Iruka. You know you hate him. He killed your parents that night 13 years ago, so don't pretend you don't hate him. Turning to Naruto, you want to know why they hate you so much, Naruto? It's because the nine-tailed fox that nearly destroyed the village and killed Yuka's parents is sealed inside you. You're the nine-tailed fox. Naruto remained silent, then turned to a sobbing Iruka. Ayaka, is it true, Iruka-sensei? I am the Kyuubi. You're not Naruto Uzumaki from the village of Konoha. You're not the Kyuubi, but you carry it within you. That's why all the villagers hate you so much. But I don't hate you, Naruto. You try hard and get up after a kick to the face interrupted him as he landed. He crashed into a tree and was knocked unconscious. Naruto stared at the only man who had recognized him when no one else did and began to feel a cold hatred rising from within him. Mizuki said, "Hey, what a weakling. Now I can kill the fox and take the scroll. I guess that's 2 for 1 night, huh, Naruto?" he said, drawing a kunai 6. The sound of multiple shadow clone jukas echoed loudly throughout the area. A plume of smoke rose as it dispersed. There were thousands of clones in every tree in the area. Mizuki watched as the clones surrounded him and brutally beat him. End of flashback. Naruto sighed, remembering that shortly after, Iruka had given him his own headband to symbolize his graduation. And it was then that Naruto found his first precious person. He had just arrived at his destination, his favorite ramen restaurant, and was about to order when a shinobi from the Okige's office arrived and informed him that he should go as soon as possible because the Okige had something important to tell him. "Okay, I'll be right there," he replied, canceling his order and getting up to see Lokage in Okiji Tower. Sarutobi had barely started walking with the stack of papers when there was a loud knock at his door. "Come in, Naruto. It was the person I wanted to see. Before you start, old man, I want to ask you again. Do you know who my parents were? Don't lie to me. I know you do. So tell me or come up with a good reason why I should know who my parents were." "Okay, I'll tell you. But you have to promise me you won't do anything rash when you find out, because it'll be a shock." Naruto nodded. "Okay. I don't know much about your mother, other than that she was strong and kind. I don't know the name of her clan or where she came from because she refused to talk about her past with anyone but the fourth." Your father waited, watching Naruto's face shift from surprise to anger, and then barely calmed down enough to hear the rest. "The reason I didn't tell you this before is that your father had many enemies who would love to take revenge on his son, and I thought you had enough problems in your own life without dealing with them anyway. So now that we've got that out of the way, what did you want to talk to me about?" Naruto was furious inside. He wanted to scream and yell, but he was a man of his word and he'd promised, so he saved it to think about later. "You're not going to like this. I'm disbanding your team as of now. Sakura and Sasuke will have private senseis." "What? Why do I like my team?" "Naruto, don't lie to me. I know Sakura treats you like garbage. Sasuke hates you with a passion, and Kakashi favors Sasuke over the rest of you. So I'm doing this so you can become strong enough to achieve your dream, whatever it may be, in the years to come." "All right, old man. Who's going to be my sensei?" Naruto asked eagerly. "Well, Sakura will have Sanade train her. Sasuke is staying with Kakashi. Who cares who gets stuck with her, old man? Who's going to teach me?" "Well, you'll be trained by Naruto." He walked toward the training grounds for their last official meeting as Team 7. He simply ignored the villagers' stares and jeers. Having dealt with this since birth, he was used to it, but it still hurt to be hated by so many people he tried to protect with his strength. "Why don't you get angry and kill them all? It'll be fun. Come on," said a voice inside his head. "No, Q, I won't hurt any of them, even if they deserve it." He wasn't surprised. He'd been able to talk to Kyuubi ever since they met, and in fact, Q had helped him learn a jutsu he'd never taught anyone. At that moment, his thoughts returned to the conversation he'd had with the Okiji just 2 hours earlier. Flashback. "The exams start in 3 weeks. Chunilii, though I think you'll do fine as you are. I decided you might like to get some training in areas where you're weak and also learn some new jutsu while you're at it. Sounds good, old man. Who's going to teach me? Well, I decided you'd have a different teacher for each of the next 3 weeks before the exams. You'll start with Team 80 and their Hanan, Karina and Yui, teaching you how to perform Jinjutsu and showing you 1 or 2 of them. Honey, who's going after her? He asked excitedly. New jutsu, he chanted in his head. Kid 1, you're annoying. Shut up, Ku complained. Oh, shut up, you giant furball. Meanwhile, while arguing with Q, the Okaji said he wouldn't tell him who the next teacher would be until the end of the week. Now that I think about it, old man, what am I going to do about a team when the exam comes around? I have to have one, don't I? He sighed. Yes, you have to have a Naruto team, and I'm sorry to do this to you, but when the time comes for the exam, you'll temporarily reform Team 7 with Sakura and Sasuke. Man, that's a __. What should I do now? Well, you should go to Team 7's final meeting today. I'll let you inform them about the disbandment and who their new sensei will be. Is this okay with you? Okay, thanks, man, he said as he left the office. End of flashback. Returning to the present, he realized he had just arrived at the meeting place and saw Sakura and Sasuke in their usual spot. As always, Kakashi wasn't there and probably wouldn't be for another 2 hours. Hey, Sakura-chan. Hey, Sasuke, Team called to them. Shut up, Dobe, was Sasuke's only response. God, you're such an annoying Naruto. Please shut up, Sakura yelled, hitting her head. Something happened in Naruto's head that hadn't happened in a long time. He almost lost control of his mask of pure rage against them both, but he barely managed to hold it back. The old Okaji wanted me to say something, but he told me to wait for Kakashi-sensei before saying anything. Now we'll have to wait forever for him to arrive. Damn Kakashi. Cow! Sakura yelled. 2 hours later, Kakashi said as he approached them. You're late, Sakura yelled back. Well, the Okaji must have seen me for a reason. Oh, now, Naruto, the Okaji told me you had something to say to the team for him. Don't you know? No. He said he'd let you explain it to us. Well, here we go. This is the final meeting of this team known as Team 7. Each of you will bring your own teachers to help us, Naruto said. He closed his eyes and waited for the explosion he knew was coming. And so it was. Nani too. I won't be with Sasuke-kun anymore. This is your fault, isn't it, Naruto? Sakura started stomping towards Naruto, intending to kill him. No, it isn't. And I haven't even told you who our sensei are yet. Believe me, Sakura, you'll be honored with whoever you get. And who did I get, Dob? Sasuke tried to ask in a disinterested tone. Well, Sasuke, you'll stay with Kakashi, and Sakura will be trained by Tsunade. Kakashi paled at this. Are you sure she said Tsunade, Naruto? Yes, Kakashi, I'm sure. But who is she? The name sounds familiar, but I can't remember where I heard it before. She's one of the legendary Sand, Tsunade, Konoha's medical specialist. So who's going to train you? Well, I actually have 3 sensei, but I only meet the first one until the end of the training week with them. My first is Kalina, and that way I can learn some Jinjutsu, Naruto said proudly. HN, why are you the last one to have 3 teachers? You're not even worth it. Why you and not Sasuke-kun? He's way cooler and better than you. Sakura and Sasuke said this without looking at Naruto, but Kakashi, who was watching them, opened his eyes, though only one was visible. He was surprised to see that Naruto had finally dropped his mask and shown how he felt about what they were saying about him. Stop insulting your teammate before you do something you might regret, he warned, but they ignored him. The last one couldn't do anything to us. Before he could do anything, he'd go berserk. Simple as that. Sasuke stated confidently. You're so cool, Sasuke-kun. Sakura said, her eyes sparkling with hearts. What happened next shocked everyone to their core. The next thing Sasuke knew, an orange blur slammed him into a tree and pummeled him unconscious. When Sakura tried to get revenge on Naruto for hurting Sasuke, he simply glared at her. "Don't you dare come near me, Aruno," he said. "Who are you? And what have you done to Naruto and Sasuke-kun?" she asked foolishly. "Well, I beat Sasuke up. As for Naruto, you never knew the real me. This is who I am. I'm tired of you two, who are supposed to be my teammates, always putting me down." But he didn't care about anyone but himself, and no one stronger than him. "And you, Aruno? No, I'll never call you Sakura-chan again. I only cared about Sasuke when I was the one doing everything I could to make you happy. What did I get in return? Just punches and hatred from all of you. Even you, Kakashi, favored him over me, your sensei's son. Yes, that's right. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, son of the 4th Hokage, and you treated me terribly. You'll never see me with the three of you again if I can help it. Goodbye." And with that, he vanished in a swirl of leaves, leaving everyone stunned to see the real Naruto. The next day, at another training ground, Naruto called out, "Hey guys," as he approached Shino, Kiba, and Hinata, who were waiting for their sensei. They turned around and were stunned by his new appearance. He was wearing baggy, long, black and red cargo pants with a familiar orange swirl on each knee, a dark blue shirt with 2 clashing kunai and the words, "Legend in Action," written underneath. "So where are Karina and Sensei?" he asked to break the silence. "She'll be here soon, not late like Kakashi the cow." "Oh, and it looks good, buddy," Kiba said. "You look good, Naruto-kun," Hinata said in her normally shy voice. "Thanks," Yada replied as a swirl of leaves appeared, indicating that Kurenai had arrived. "Ah, I'm glad Naruto is so ready to learn Jinjutsu," he asked. "Of course, Yurina-sama," he said respectfully, which surprised everyone except Hinata, who was pleased that Naruto was finally going to prove to everyone that he wasn't the idiot they made him out to be. Naruto sat atop the Okuji monument, reflecting on the past 2 weeks of his training. He still had a week and one sensei to review before the exams began. Chunaini was to meet him tomorrow near the hot springs. Why the hot springs? He didn't know why. He just hoped his sensei wasn't a pervert. This was supposed to be his permanent sensei. His training with Karina and his sensei had helped him a lot, but he'd learned that he definitely wasn't a Jinjutsu-type shinobi, even though he did master one. The week after his Jinjutsu training, well, he just smiled, remembering one of the best weeks of his life. Flashback. "Hey, dude, my first week's over. Who's my new sensei for this week?" Naruto said as he walked into the Okuji's office. "So, Naruto, how was the Jinjutsu training?" the Okuji asked. "Well, I wasn't very good at it, but I did learn one thing, old man." "Good, but before I reveal who your mentors will be this week, I need to make sure of something. Please channel your chakra into this piece of paper." He handed the paper to Naruto and watched it tear in half. "I knew you had an affinity for the wind. I just wanted to be sure." He turned toward the door. "You can come in now." Naruto glanced toward the door as 2 men entered. The first one he'd ever seen running through Konoha before, his name was Mato Gay. He wore a green spandex jumpsuit with orange bands around his ankles. He had a bowl haircut and unusually large eyebrows. He smiled at Naruto, nearly blinding him with the gleam of his teeth. Naruto quickly looked away before his eyes went blank, and he had to inspect his other sensei. He'd never seen this one before, and he was obviously from another village, judging by the headband with the hourglass-shaped symbol and a single line underneath. He had a white cloth covering the top of his head and half of his face. He wore a tan joning vest and cargo pants. "So this is the boy I need to teach wind jutsu to?" he asked. "Yes, Baki-san. As part of our loyalty to our country, Jonings must teach elemental jutsu to those with an affinity for that element." Well, he'd better be prepared to work hard and make sure he doesn't get in Gaara's way. He has a very strong personality and will kill anyone who bothers him, Baki replied. Yosh, Naruto, your taijutsu too will shine with the brilliance of your youth when you finish your training with me, Gay said, his voice a little too loud. End of flashback. Naruto shuddered as he recalled Guy's since his training, where he'd been practically forced to wear one of those green jumpsuits until he destroyed everyone who tried to force it on him. However, he did use weights, which helped him develop his own style of taijutsu. He'd become very close friends with Lee and Tenten. Niji was good, just a little stuck up. During his training with them, he suddenly blushed as he recalled an incident that had occurred during their training earlier that week. Flashback. In one of the training fields, Naruto and Lee were working on their stamina, kicking one of the wooden posts until it broke. Meanwhile, Tenten was helping Niji develop one of his jutsu called Kaiten, which involved releasing a precise amount of chakra to repel any attack, but she was having trouble releasing the correct amount. She always released too little, as could be seen from the many kita cuts all over her body. He was getting frustrated with it, and it started to show on his face when Naruto approached to check on them. Then it happened. Niji finally had enough and released as much chakra as he could at once. The result was that he repelled a kuna that Tenten had thrown while in midair, sending it hurtling toward her at twice the speed. She had no way to dodge, so she simply closed her eyes and waited for the end. She heard the sound of many kunai strikes, but felt no pain. Confused, she opened her eyes to see that Naruto had jumped in front of her and caught all the kunai in his chest. She could only watch in surprise as he landed beside her and began to pull them out. She was astonished to see the wounds heal in just a few seconds after the kunai were removed. How? How did you do that, Naruto? You healed all those wounds so fast? She asked. He tensed. What do you mean they weren't that deep? Must they have mistaken the blood for deep wounds? He replied, trying to make light of it, but they didn't buy it. Stop talking nonsense, Naruto. We all saw it, Niji said from behind him. Naruto started trembling. You'll hate me like all the villagers if I tell you. Please, Naruto-kun, can you tell us? Tenten said, leaning forward and hugging him. And thank you for saving me. Maybe I can tell them. Well, it's now or never, he thought as he reluctantly pulled away from Tenten's arms. Thanks for the hug, Tenchan. It was a very nice hug for my first hug, he said, looking at the three of them. Hug? He asked. He nodded. You'll understand when I tell you why. He took a deep breath. What do you know about the legend of the nine-tailed fox? He asked. Wasn't it defeated and killed by the 4th Hokage 13 years ago? Naruto replied. No, Lee, it wasn't killed, it was defeated. They sealed it inside the 4th Hokage's son, so he would never return and so his son could protect the people of Konoha in his absence. He replied. So the 4th Hokage had a son. Who is it? Niji asked. It's me. That's why the villagers hate me so much. It's because the nine-tailed fox is inside me. They see me as a demon, not as its vessel, he said. Then he turned around and waited to hear them run or attack him, for he would never hurt his friends if he could help it. What happened next was the last thing he expected. Arms encircled him and hugged him again. I'm so sorry for what the villagers did to you, Naruto, but trust us. We could never hate you, they said. That's right, Naruto. We're your friends, Lee shouted bravely. Thank you so much. You don't know what this means to me, Naruto said through tears. End of flashback. Thinking about that moment made him think about the other half of that week of training with the Sand Shinobi. Flashback scene. It was their second day of training with the Sand Trio, and everyone was resting. Temari was alone, repairing any damage to her giant fan. She got along well with Temari. There was neither hatred nor affection between them. They simply accepted each other's presence. Kankuro was on the other side, playing with his puppets, making sure all the swords were sharp and ready. He and Naruto often played pranks on Timar and Baki-san. Gaara, however, was a different story. He always maintained a stoic expression and didn't speak unless forced. Naruto finally decided to see if he could befriend Gaara, so he approached him. "Hey Gaara, how are you?" he asked. Both Kankuro and Temari wearily watched Gaara's reaction. "What do you want, Uzumaki?" she asked. "Not much. I'm just trying to be friendly." "That's all," he replied. "Leave me alone before I kill you," Gaara responded, glaring at Naruto with bloodlust in his eyes. Temari quickly thought of how to defuse the situation, so she approached Naruto and whispered, "Don't take it personally. He's had a difficult life, hated by our village, and nearly killed several times for something he couldn't control." Naruto's eyes widened in surprise. "So you have one for Gaara?" he asked. "You have one?" Uzumaki replied cautiously. "You have a demon inside you, right?" "I have one too," Naruto said. Timar and Kankuro backed away upon hearing this. "You're like me," Gaara said, with what might have been a glimmer of hope that he wasn't alone in the world. Naruto nodded and then closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were blood red. Gaara knew the Kubi's Jinchuriki. Gaara stood there and then smiled the first smile of his life since he was 6 years old as the sand rose up around him. Naruto met Shikaku's container, also known as a Chibi 3. Temari began to cry. Gaara was truly showing emotion. This blonde boy with a certain skill had saved his brother from a life of loneliness with a single act. Perhaps he was more than just a somewhat skilled shinobi, she thought. From that moment on, the Sand Trio became the Sand Quartet, as they treated Naruto like one of the family. End of flashback. Naruto sighed contentedly at the thought of his family as he called out to Gaara, Temari, Kankuro, Neji, Lee, and Tenten. As he lay back, he looked up and saw someone walking toward him. He blinked, seeing not one, but two people, two kunoichi whom he took a moment to recognize. "Hey, Aruno and Yamanaka, how are you tonight?" he asked them. "Apologize for what you did to Sasuke-kun," they both demanded. "And if I don't?" he asked. "Then we'll kill you right now," they shouted. "Well, if you really want a piece of me, then let's go to one of the training grounds, and we can see if you can really hurt me or if you're both just hot air." "I think it's probably the latter, but time will tell." "Sakura and Ino-chan?" he asked, adding the chan suffix mockingly, which infuriated both girls. "Let's go!" Sakura shouted. Sure enough, Ino followed Sakura, and they both walked toward the nearest training field. On the way, Naruto ran into Tenten and Timar, who were returning home from training. "Hey Naruto, what's up with Nino and Sakura?" Tenten asked. "Nothing out of the ordinary. They just challenged me to a fight to make me apologize for beating Sasuke up a few weeks ago. Want to come watch?" he replied. They both nodded and started walking beside him, each holding his arm. When they reached the field, they let go and walked toward one of the hills surrounding it to watch the match, because it was sure to be a good fight, although they doubted the girls would even be able to touch Naruto. "So are you ready, girls?" Naruto asked his opponents. In response, Sakura put on combat gloves and Ilo adopted a light defensive stance, ready for anything. Then they waited for Naruto to make the first move. "I'll finish you both with a single technique," Naruto shouted bravely as his hands quickly made some hand signals, finishing with his familiar shadow clone jutsu sign. But instead of clones appearing, she slammed her hands on the ground and shouted for all to hear. Original technique, sword and shield. Kaibyun. When nothing happened for a few seconds, Ino smiled and charged straight at Naruto, who just smiled and adopted a stance similar to Gaara's. He stood with his hands crossed over his chest, as if he didn't care at all about the kunoichi who was about to kill him. Then it happened. Just as Ino's fist was about to land, a shadow clone appeared and caught it without Naruto even having to move. Then, A loud thud sounded behind Ino as a foot dug into her back, propelling her into the fist of another clone and knocking her unconscious. Naruto simply sighed. "I expected a little more from you, Yamanaka," she said, shaking her head in disappointment. Then she remembered Sakura and smiled at her, which infuriated her. She charged chakra into her fists and slammed them into the ground, sending a shockwave toward Naruto. About 15 clones appeared in various poses, mocking her as they absorbed the impact instead of its intended target. Then she charged forward, unleashing a barrage of punches and kicks recklessly, but wherever she struck, there was always a clone there to block her. "How do you do it?" she finally asked, backing away breathlessly. "That's for me to know, and you have to guess," he said, summoning a clone without any hand gestures. She watched from behind her again and knocked her unconscious, effectively ending the fight without him receiving a scratch. "Awesome, Naruto!" Timar and Tintin shouted, running towards him and hugging him, which made him blush furiously while scratching the back of his neck with laughter. "Well, I'm exhausted. That jutsu leaves me breathless, so I'll see you around, but not tomorrow. I have to meet my new sensei," he told them as he headed back to his apartment. They waved goodbye as he disappeared and returned to their rooms, dreaming about how cool he was, and trying to find ways to like him as more than just a friend. Naruto had just arrived at the hot springs to meet his new sense. Looking around, he noticed that no one was there yet, so he decided to train on his own. He started with the chakra control exercise of walking on water. A few minutes in, he heard someone chuckling behind him. Turning around to see who it was, he saw an old man peeking over the fence of the girls' bathroom with a notebook in his hand. "Hey, pervert, what are you doing there?" Naruto yelled at him. The man turned around, and Naruto finally got a good look at him. He had white hair that reached his knees. His headband was different from usual, without any markings except for 2 horns, and he had red markings running down his face from under his eyes. He wore an outfit that, for some strange reason, could disturbingly be worn by a geisha. "Kid, don't bother me while I investigate." "And who are you?" the Kyuubi boy thought. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki. I'll soon be the next Hokage." "But who are you?" "What? You don't know who I am?" Naruto just shook his head. "I'm your new sensei, Jiraiya, the Toad Sage. Look at him and be amazed," he said, while doing the most ridiculous dance Naruto had ever seen. "Awesome, I have a pervert as a sensei," Naruto muttered under his breath. But Jiraiya still heard him. "Wrong brat. I'm not a pervert, I'm a mega pervert," he declared proudly. "Well then, what are you going to teach me, Hirosanen?" "One, don't call me that, brat. Anyway, I'll teach you how to summon the best summons in history, Toads. And you'll learn your father's 2 signature techniques." "You knew my father?" Naruto asked excitedly. "Of course, kid. I was his sensei before he became an Hokage and all that, so I know what's inside you too." Naruto shuddered. "Coming to think of it, you have to learn to harness that power. It could be your secret weapon when things get beyond what your abnormal amount of stamina can handle. I can already do that, but I don't like it unless it's absolutely necessary. I've been able to do it since I discovered the fox thing. It's not as bad as you'd think a demon would be. It gives very good advice, and has a sense of humor when it sees someone as stupid." "So do you have anything about me?" Jiraiya asked. "Not much, just that toads are stupid, and it would be better for me to sign the fox summoning I've decided to do with foxes anyway. It just makes more sense with him inside me and all," Naruto replied casually. "Okay, well, let's start with the jutsus, shall we?" 2 days later, back at the hot springs. "Well, kid, you've come a long way in 2 days, so let's see what you can do. Follow me to the training grounds and we'll have a training session," Jiraiya told Naruto. "Sure, Isanen, I'll kick your butt if you want," Naruto said confidently as they started walking. A few minutes later, at a training ground, they arrived for their training, but found it occupied by Sakura and their sensei, Tsunade. Hey Tsunade, how are you? Jiraiya called to his former teammate. Tsunade was a tall, blonde woman with blue eyes and a blue diamond on her forehead, the most striking features Naruto had ever seen, though he refrained from looking at her because he didn't want everyone to know he was a pervert. Flashback scene. Hey kid, what do you think of this book? Jiraiya asked his student, holding up a small orange book titled Achacha Paradise Dash. In the United States, it's called Make Out Paradise Dash. That's a perverted book, and I'm not a pervert. Well, that's strange because your father was almost as perverted as I am. But have you ever read any of that stuff? No, I haven't, but I don't think I'd like it. Well, here's a way to check if you're a pervert or not. Read the first 3 pages, and if you still don't turn the book upside down, then you're not a pervert. It's that simple. Okay, I'll try it, Naruto said sadly as he picked up the book and began to read. 3 pages later, he had a massive nosebleed and was laughing at the book. I guess you're a pervert, huh, Naruto? Whoever wrote this book is a genius, and I will bow down to their greatness. Well, you're looking at it, Jiraiya stated proudly, then began to laugh because Naruto was actually bowing down to him. End of flashback. Oh, it's not Naruto again, Naruto said, exasperated. Do you know the one with pink hair? Jiraiya asked. Yes, she was my old teammate back when Team 7 existed. Why don't you sound happy to see her then? Tsunade asked as she walked with Sakura right beside her. Because the last time we saw each other, she and Ino Yamanaka attacked me, and I had to knock them out, he stated, obviously bored. That was just a fluke. You really couldn't beat me in a fair fight, Sakura yelled. Well, I have an idea, Jiraiya said maliciously. What do you have planned now, Orosman? Naruto asked, worried about what the answer might be. We'll have team training. You and I against Tsunade and Pinkie Pie. There she was, acting as if it were perfectly normal to do something like that, while Naruto and Tsunade were thinking about it. Sakura was still angry about Pinkie's comment. My name is Sakura, not Pinkie. Let's do it, Sensei. I want revenge on that idiot named Naruto, Sakura said, cracking her knuckles. Son of a bitch, this might be fun after all, Tsunade thought. All right, let's do it, she said as she and Sakura jumped back and assumed a defensive stance that was essentially the same because they shared the same fighting style, making them a formidable team. Meanwhile, Naruto and Jiraiya grinned at each other as they plotted their own strategies. Since both were unpredictable fighters, this was going to be a great match. Meanwhile, some people were walking through the area exploring the village when they heard an announcement of a fight and went to see what was happening. Among them were Gaara, his sister Timar, and 3 people wearing black cloaks to conceal their features. Just as they all sat down to watch, Sakura and Tsunade simultaneously threw punches at the ground, generating a massive shockwave in all directions. But the strongest blast was aimed at Naruto and Jiraiya, who simply smiled as they dodged. Meanwhile, the shockwaves from the attack whipped up gusts of wind so strong they tore the cloaks off the 3 figures. 2 were boys, and there was 1 girl in the group. The boy on the left looked the youngest, but he was by far the largest of the group, easily matching a masked sumo wrestler. He had spiky blonde hair like our heroes, but black eyes without pupils. He wore a black shirt riddled with millions of tiny holes, black pants with metal knee pads, and was barefoot. The other man in the group was his exact opposite. He was extremely thin, as if he were built for speed alone, with no power whatsoever. He had blood-red hair and wore nothing flashy, just all blue, with symbols on each cheek that made him stand out. The final member, the only woman in the group, had long, black hair that was probably dyed. She also had deep blue eyes. Her favorite feature: she wore a dark red, short-sleeved shirt that showed enough features to make any man drool, with a long, dark blue skirt that was slanted and reached almost to the ankle of her left leg while ending mid-thigh on her right. Damn win, said the big man. Shut up, Joppy, the skinny boy replied. You know I don't allow you to call me by my real name, Nissaline, Jappy retorted. You two shut up. Eventually, we'd have to take them away from you, but I want to see this fight. That blonde boy is cute, the girl said sternly. Citrine-sama, both boys said. How many times have I said it? Call me Amekna. That's my first name. I don't like formalities. She shouted at them, her eyes glowing violet. You don't have to use your bloodline limit. We won't call you that again. So let's watch the fight, Missaline said, laughing nervously. No, was her only response as they turned to watch the fight still going on. It seemed the pink-haired boy had been knocked out from the start by Mita's blonde crush, but both he and the old man were having trouble with the blonde woman. Damn it, she won't stay still long enough for me to hit her, Naruto complained as he created more clones and attacked her again. Naruto, I have an idea that might confuse her. Use the special technique I taught you. Yes, that should work. Rasengan, he shouted as a swirling ball of chakra, crackling with currents, appeared in his hand as he charged at Tsunade. She dodged it and landed a few feet away. Jiraiya, why are you teaching him a technique he hasn't mastered? He asked. Want to make a bet about it? He replied. Sure, I'll bet my necklace, the one the first cage of Konoha gave me, that he can't do that technique. Deal? Although if you lose the bet, you'll both be banned from the hot springs for the next year, he said, smiling mockingly at their horrified expressions. But Naruto, as always, wouldn't back down from a challenge. Fine, I accept, he said, charging a perfect Rasengan in one hand as a clone appeared beside him. He pumped his chakra into the spinning ball, making it larger. Odama Rasengan! Both he and the clone shouted as they charged it. She stood there in shock, but regained her composure just in time to dodge the technique. But as she landed, Jiraiya was behind her with a kunai at her neck. You lose the bet in the match, he said, laughing. Tsunade said nothing, simply walking over to Naruto, placing the necklace around his neck, and kissing him on the forehead. The first stage of the Chunin exams began. Naruto had just arrived at the Okage office because the old man had something to tell him. Naruto, you don't need a team for the first stage of the exam, but you will for the next stage if you manage to pass. That's why I've called you here. 2 teams have asked you to join them, Guy's team and the Sand team. You don't have to choose now, but you must make a decision 3 days before the second stage, he stated simply. No problem. I'll have the answer then, but for now I need to get to the exams, Naruto replied excitedly as he ran out of the office. Good luck, Naruto. I have a feeling you're going to need it. In the first stage, everyone was seated at their desks in a classroom when a tall man with a scarf around his head, obscuring it from view, entered. Silence. I am your first supervisor for this exam, and here are my rules. No questions. No talking at any time. You have 10 points to begin. There are 10 questions in this exam, 9 of which are on the sheet in front of you. The 10th question will be given out after 45 minutes and has its own rules. You now have 1 hour to answer the questions, he said, turning over an hourglass. Naruto looked at his paper and the questions. Well, I know half of them myself. Thanks. Arosanen, do you know the other foxes? He thought about the fox. Of course I do. Naruto finished the questions with plenty of time to spare, so he waited for the 10th. It finally arrived. All right, brats. Before I give you the 10th question, you have to decide if you want to answer it, because if you get it wrong, you'll never get to take the exam again. He waited patiently as people began to leave, but Naruto simply relaxed with his hands behind his head. If they didn't see this exam was stupid from the start, I won't tell them, he thought. Just when it seemed no one else would quit, the supervisor announced that everyone had passed. Most of them stood there in surprise, while some, including Naruto, nodded, for they had been right all along. As Naruto left, someone approached him from behind. I saw you fight earlier. You were amazing, the voice said. Naruto turned to see the girl with long, black hair who had watched him fight Sakura and Tsunade. She noticed he was wearing a grass ninja headband. Thanks, but it was a really tough fight, she replied, blushing not only at the comment. I was wondering if you'd like to give me a tour of the city. I've never been to Konoha before. By the way, my name is Mekrin. What's yours? I'm Naruto Uzumaki. Nice to meet you. I'd love to give you a tour, but I have to meet with the Okaji about something. Maybe tomorrow around 2. See you here again, he asked nervously. She blushed. It's a date, she replied as she leaned forward and kissed him on the cheek before leaving Naruto very stunned. Later, in Okaji's office, Naruto said, Oh yo, I've already been and made my decision. Oh, that's fine. What did you decide? I want to be on the team. 4 figures could be seen leaping through the trees toward a tower in the distance. These 4 figures were participating in the second stage of the Chunin exams, which were being held in the so-called Forest of Death. Their goal was to obtain a celestial scroll and an earthly scroll. They had started with the celestial scroll and quickly defeated a team from the Hidden Mist village, taking their earthly scroll. So they were practically finished. They just had to reach the tower safely. The shinobi at the front of the group had long, black hair and almost white eyes. His name was Nejiraiga. The shinobi behind him also had black hair, but in a bowl cut. He wore a green jumpsuit. His name was Rogel. 2 others followed, hopping side by side, a girl and a boy. The girl had brown hair tied in 2 buns that made her look like a mouse from a distance. Her name was Tintarosai. The boy was blonde with blue eyes. He wore a black shirt with a blood-red fox on the front, its tails wrapping around his back. His cargo pants had 2 red swirls on the front pockets. This boy was Uzumaki Naruto, and he was eagerly anticipating the end of this stage of the exams. After a few minutes of running, they had reached a field near the tower. The field was occupied by 2 teams. One was a team from the Rain Nation, and they weren't particularly unique at first glance, but their leader was quite different. He was holding an umbrella for no apparent reason. The other team was from the Sand Nation. At the front was a boy with spiky red hair. He had a huge gourd made of sand strapped to his back, and the word Kaji, for love, was tattooed above his left eye. His name was Sabakunaga. Era, the boy to the left of the redheads, wore a black suit that almost made him look like a cat. He had something wrapped in bandages strapped to his back, something large enough to hold a whole body. She also had purple markings on her face. Sabakuno Kano was her name, and she wasn't happy to see the Rain Ninja in front of him. But she wasn't worried either. The final member was a girl with blonde hair tied in 4 short pigtails. She also had a large fan strapped to her back. She was Sabakuno Temari. The group was too far away to hear what Gaara and the ninja with the umbrella were talking about, but they understood the point when the Rain Ninja launched a swarm of spinning umbrellas into the air, releasing thousands of needles that the ninja controlled perfectly. The ninja smiled confidently at Gaara and then made all the needles fly toward him, leaving him no room to escape. When they collided, a huge cloud of smoke billowed up. When the rain stopped, the ninjas were shocked to see Gaara surrounded by sand that had blocked all the needles. Then, Gaara raised his hand, causing the sand to shoot out and engulf the 3 ninjas, lifting them into the air. A thud of sand echoed as Gaara clenched his fist, crushing the 3 ninjas with his sand and killing them instantly. Naruto jumped up near the sand team. Was it really necessary to kill all 3 of them? Gaara asked as he approached and greeted them. Not really, but they annoyed me a lot, Gaara replied when Temari finally realized it was Naruto. She ran to him, jumped on him, and gave him a tight hug. In the background, Tenten could be seen furious, being held down by a stunned Lu. They had already obtained their 2 scrolls. They nodded. Well then, let's get out of this cursed forest, she said as they headed towards the tower. They arrived a few minutes later, and were told they had passed the second stage. Meanwhile, in another part of the Forest of Death, Emetna was getting very angry. Her team had run into an AI team, and they were good at blocking and dodging everything she threw at them, although with the help of her companions, she had taken down 2 without activating her bloodline. However, this last one was far superior to the others, and her 2 companions were almost out of chakra. She, too, was running a short distance when a bit of mud shot up from the ground and trapped her in place as the rock ninja walked toward her with a mocking smile. "So what are you going to do if you can't move and your friends can't help you, little one?" he said arrogantly, stopping a few meters away and taking his katana off his back. "Damn it! I'm going to have to use it," he thought. But just as he was summoning the chakra for his technique, a voice shouted, "Ice Fox Fist!" A second later, a giant chunk of ice shaped like a fox's head crashed down on the rock ninja, killing him instantly. He looked toward where the ice had come from and saw 3 people in the shadows. "Who are you, and why did you save us?" she asked. The one in front stepped out first. "Well, I couldn't let such a beautiful girl like you die, could I?" he asked, making her blush. She had short brown hair that fell all over her because she didn't care. Secretly, she thought it was cool. Her brown eyes sparkled blue as an ice rose appeared in her hand. He wore a dark black shirt with yellow lettering that asked, "Want to play with my kunai?" He also wore dark blue pants with countless pockets. "Flirting with pretty girls again," said the figure on the left as he stepped into the light. "My name is Kayanda. Nice to meet you." He had orange hair, almost exactly like Naruto's, and hazel eyes. He wore a blue t-shirt with an orange cat and the kanji for "damn cat" written across it. "Introduce yourself before talking to a stranger next time, Kay," said the third figure as he stepped forward. He had black hair combed back to his shoulders. He wore a dark black shirt similar to Kay's, only instead of a cat it had a dragon and his kanji. "My name is Toriana. Please forgive my brother's rudeness," he said as he bowed to her. "There's no need to apologize. My name is Imnatrine. It's a pleasure to meet you, and thank you for saving me with the ice fox. It was incredible." "Who did it?" she asked. "That would be me," said the first one to speak. "Thanks again, but I didn't catch your name." He ignored her question, asking if this was the scroll they needed as he took it from one of the rock ninja bodies. When she nodded, he handed it to her, and his team headed toward the tower. "Answer my question," she thought as her team set off after them and caught up with them at the tower. "Tell me your name, please, so I can remember who saved me," she called out. He stopped abruptly, turned to face her, and gave her a sly smile. "My name is Shigeru Uzumaki. Please remember that," he said as his team entered the tower, leaving a very surprised and blushing grass Kunoichi outside. She regained consciousness a few seconds later, and her team entered the tower. A few hours later, in an arena in the middle of the tower, all the shinobi who had passed the second stage were lined up in their respective villages. Konoha had 4 teams, 1 each for sand, sound, plant, and ice, the 3 teams Mina had met earlier. The Okaji walked in front of everyone and congratulated them on passing the second stage, but just as he was about to say something else, a shinobi appeared before him and apologized, saying that he would take care of things from then on. "It seems many of you passed the first 2 stages, so we'll have to have some preliminary fights before moving on to the finals," the Honin said, coughing into his hand. The idea of fighting each other made some nervous, while others were excited, including Sasuke Uchiha, who had a rough time in the forest. He ran into a man named Orochimaru, who, just as he was leaving, stretched his neck incredibly long and bit Sasuke on the neck, leaving him with a painful, cursed mark that constantly bothered him. "The wall with 2 empty spaces behind you will reveal who will fight whom in the preliminaries," declared the sickly-looking Jonin as everyone turned to look at the wall with the 2 blank screens. Suddenly, 2 names appeared in the black spaces. Shino Aburim versus Zaku. Could everyone else please leave the arena? The Jonin asked as everyone except the two fighters left the ring to watch from the balconies that lined the hall. Back in the arena, the two fighters stared at each other. Zaku had both arms in slings when he removed his left one. Sasuke appeared to have broken both of his arms when they collided in the forest. I think this arm will be enough to beat you, he said to Shino, who didn't reply and simply stared at him, waiting for the referee to start the match. The first match begins, Jonin said as he jumped to the side of the arena. Zaku moved first, raising his left arm and shouting, Zana, the explosion that cuts through the air. A massive explosion struck Shino, creating a huge cloud of smoke. As it dissipated, they saw Shino shaking his face. He had several holes in his face where insects writhed beneath his skin, healing his wounds. He simply glanced at Zaku and pointed behind him. When Zaku looked back, he saw an army of insects wriggling behind him. Those are Kakai beetles that feed on a person's chakra. If you use your hand to attack me, they'll attack you from behind. If you attack them, I'll get you out of here. A clever shinobi saves their ace for last, Shino said calmly. Zaku laughed. If you want an ace up your sleeve, here it is, he shouted, pulling his other arm out of the sling, pointing one at Shino and the other at the swarm of insects. Zanqua tried again, but this time it didn't have the same effect. Instead, both arms exploded. As he stared at them on the ground with a confused expression, Shino explained, While you were busy gloating over that first hit, I made my insect swarm you and cover your hand so you couldn't hit me with it again, he said calmly as he climbed onto the balcony. Winner, Shino Aburame. Scattered applause rippled through the room as everyone gasped at what had happened when they saw a medical team come to collect Zaku. The screen switched back to show the next fighters. Sasuke Uchiha versus Chin. This will be over soon, Sasuke said confidently as he jumped downstairs while Chin followed. They both stood there smiling at each other with reassurance. The game begins! Chin darted forward and threw some needles with bells at Sasuke, who dodged them and threw shurikens, which she evaded by jumping to the left. Then he threw kunai at her, which she dodged by leaping to the right. Sasuke smirked as he threw a windmill shuriken just as she dodged it. Sasuke pulled the strings he had attached to all his weapons, causing them to change direction and strike Q from behind. She had nowhere to go, so she braced herself for the impact. He was hit in the arms and back, causing him to fall to the ground. Confident, Sasuke turned his back and began walking toward the edge of the arena, thinking the fight was already won. Suddenly, he heard a howling scream fill the arena as he was thrown face first against the wall. Turning around, he saw Chin still standing with a kunai stuck in his back. What was that? He asked. That was Bane's lament. A technique only I can do, he said confidently. Sasuke seized the opportunity to rush forward and kick her into the air. She was standing beside him. He saw it. That's my lotus technique. How could you, Sasuke? He said as Guy and Naruto shook their heads, embarrassed by what Sasuke had done. Meanwhile, in the air, from now on everything is original, he said as he kicked with his right leg, which was blocked, and then with his left arm, which was also blocked. Chin smiled at her, saying, It's not enough. Sasuke smiled directly at her as his left leg struck her in the stomach, sending her crashing back to the ground. Sasuke finished her off with an axe kick to the stomach as they landed, knocking her unconscious. Winner, Sasuke Uchiha. Everyone started applauding with the notable exception of Naruto, Guy, Lu, Niji, and Tenten. They all watched with anticipation as the scoreboards went blank again. Meanwhile, Kakashi had taken Sasuke away to seal his mark, __, until Jiraiya could see it. The boards finally revealed the following names. Shikamaru Nara versus Kanda. How troublesome, came a voice as Shikamaru headed to the floor while Kanda entered a shadow portal and exited through another on the arena floor. Next match start. Neither fighter moved, staring intently at each other as they tried to find a good opening move, neither of them aware that they had similar intelligence and skill scores. Kay started by breaking through some seals and shouting, "Flame of the Shadow Dragon!" A dragon made of shadows rose from the ground and breathed black flames in Shikamaru's direction, who barely dodged to the side while launching his shadow tendril. Kay stood there as the shadow clung to his feet. "Full Shadow Possession Jutsu," Shikamaru said, certain his opponent couldn't move when he heard Ku shout, "Shadow Tsunami!" A massive wave of darkness crashed down on Shikamaru, slamming him against the same wall Sasuke had crashed into in their last fight. "How could you keep moving when my possession jutsu had you?" Kai asked, laughing. "You call that shadow jutsu? I'm a master of shadow jutsu. Your pathetic attempts don't affect me at all, so I guess I'm immune to your shadow techniques," he replied. "This is too much trouble. I forfeit the match," Shikamaru said as he returned to the balcony. The scoreboards had gone blank again, and then two more names appeared. Emetrin versus Sakura Aruno. Both females jumped from the balcony and stood there waiting for the signal to begin the match. The match begins. Sakura starts by creating two clones and running towards Emekna. Emekna stood there as Sakura charged. When Sakura threw a punch, Emekna bent from side to side, back and forth, like a tree in the wind. "So you're the Aruno Naruto told me so much about. I can't say I'm impressed," Emna said, continuing to dodge and not returning any attacks. "And what did he tell you? How beautiful and magnificent I am. I'd never go out with that even if my life depended on it," Sakura said disdainfully. This stopped abruptly when a fist struck her in the face, sending her flying backward. She saw Emna, with her violet eyes, staring at her. You never tried to see who she really was. You never cared. All that time, she was talking to you, inviting you out every day. If you had truly considered her your comrade, you would have realized it was a mask hiding her pain and sorrow. "Because I sensed you, you heartless vixen," Ekna yelled as a fireball appeared out of nowhere and slammed into Sakura. Then the grass sprouted from the ground, sharpening like knives that sliced through her. "How did you do this?" she stammered as she watched an angry imp approach her. "It's my lineage. It's called Remiku," she said as Sakura froze against the wall. "Now say you surrender," Emekna demanded as ice slowly crept up Sakura's neck. "I surrender," Sakura shouted. Then the ice broke as Emekna approached Naruto on the balcony and gave him a hug that angered Timar. And Tenten also angered Shigeru. "Why does she get the cute ones?" she thought, and then her attention was caught when the boards revealed the next two names. Shigeru Uzumaki versus Ino Yamanaka. The fighters leaped onto the arena floor, but Shigeru landed on an ice slide he had created himself. When they met, Shigeru grinned. "Well, looks like I'll be facing the Yamanaka clan's dreaded mind transfer technique," he said confidently, swinging from one foot to the other. Ino didn't answer. She just stared at the boy who shared the same name as Naruto. Speaking of Naruto, she looked at him and saw an expression of astonishment. Finally, she came to her senses and shouted, "Who are you, and why do you have the same last name as me?" Shigeru looked at her and smiled. "Because I'm your long-lost brother, and I'll tell you everything after the fight so you can enjoy the show, and you too, my beautiful Ice Rose." He said these last words to Emekna, making her blush. "The match begins," Shigeru shouted. "Ice surfing jutsu," he yelled as he jumped onto a piece of ice and began to slide across the sand at full speed. Ino jumped into the center of the circle he was forming to avoid being run over when another jutsu was heard. "It's time to have some fun and destroy this crushing ice dome," he shouted as the trail he'd left behind while surfing rose into the air. Anyone who looked closely at his eyes at that moment would notice they were as blue as Naruto's. When the dome was complete, his eyes turned brown again. The dome began to shrink. Ino could be heard crashing against the walls, desperately trying to get out, but nothing worked. Finally, when she couldn't move at all because the shield had shrunk so much, a shout came from inside. I give up. Let me out of this thing. My butt's freezing. The dome collapsed, revealing one, shivering, standing there, very disappointed by the outcome of their fight. Winner: Shigeru Uzumaki. Shigeru turned to where Naruto was and said, I've come to try and convince you to come home with me to see the rest of your family. Where is my home, and do I still have any family alive? Naruto asked nervously. Yes, you have an entire clan waiting for you in the hidden glacier village of Dosoi, so you'll come with me, he said, extending his hand toward Naruto. Everyone remained silent. About 10 minutes had passed since Shigeru had asked Naruto if he would return with him to the village hidden in the ice, but no one had said anything, either because they were surprised that Naruto had a family, or in the case of Sasuke and Sakura, because the last one to die had such a strong person in his family. Finally, the stage supervisor spoke. Although that's an interesting question, perhaps it should be asked after this stage of the exams is over. Everyone in the room nodded as the board revealed the next two combatants, Sabak no Kankuro versus Atorianda. Both combatants descended the stairs to the arena below and stood there staring intently at each other. Actually, Kankuro was staring at him while Tori seemed indifferent. The match begins. Kankuro charged forward while Tori gestured with his hands and extended his as if holding something. Akasashi of the blazing sun, he shouted to Tori, who was blindingly bright. When everyone opened their eyes, they saw Kankuro getting up with some cuts on his face. The wrapped package he always carried on his back lay a few meters away, completely forgotten. Atori stood calmly on the other side of the arena, a long, curved katana of light in his hands. Want to finish this quickly? Kei asked as Shigeru simply nodded. Kankuro smirked and charged at Atori again, who began running toward him with his sword slung over his shoulder, ready to kill if necessary. Halfway between them, Kankuro raised his hands in front of him and unleashed a barrage of daggers at Atori. Just as they were about to strike, Atori vanished in a burst of speed and pierced Kankuro with his sword. Expecting a cry of pain, Atori was shocked when Kankuro began to laugh and his arms stretched to incredible lengths, enveloping him and holding him still. The wrapped object quickly unwrapped, revealing its true form as it stood there grinning smugly, blue chakra threads controlling its puppet body. What the hell? He shouted at Tori as the body holding it lost its face and revealed a wooden puppet. Surrender or I'll kill you, Kankuro said. It was his turn to be surprised when Atori laughed at him as he transformed into beams of light and reappeared on the other side of the arena. How did you do that? Kankuro asked. It's a special ability of my lineage that I can only use 3 times a day, Torienters replied, disappearing again. And suddenly, Kankuro felt a blade plunge into his throat. Now it's your turn to surrender or die, Tori said from behind Kankuro. Fine, I give it up, Kankuro said as he went to pick up his puppet again. Winner, Torianda. Everyone applauded as they stood up again and then looked once more to see who would fight next. Koji Akimichi versus Dosu. I don't know if I want to do this, Choji said, trembling. If you win this fight, I'll take you to an all-you-can-eat barbecue, his sensei told him. Food! Choji shouted as he jumped into the arena below. Choji was a chubby kid with small cowlicks on each cheek. Never call him fat when he can hear you. His opponent was an average-sized kid with a hunchback, completely wrapped in bandages except for one arm, which had a strange device with a bunch of holes in it. The match begins. Choji quickly shouted, "Double body," as he doubled in size. Then he swiftly tucked his arms and legs under his clothes and began rolling around, yelling, "Human rock!" He charged at Dosu, who stood there with his fist clenched, ready to strike. Just as Choji was about to hit him, Dosu struck him with the arm equipped with the strange device, sending Choji crashing into the wall, unconscious. My melodious arm, within me, creates sound waves that I control and sound vibrations that are duplicated in masses of water. So one blow was enough. Dosu declared the winner. No one applauded Dosu. Everyone felt sorry for Choji, who was carried out on a stretcher. Naruto Uzumaki vs. Kibinuka. Both Naruto and Kiba jumped into the arena below. This will be easy, Akamaru. We just have to beat the last one, no problem. Kiba said arrogantly to his dog, oblivious to Naruto's fury at being called last again. Akamaru simply barked in confirmation as he jumped off Kiba's head and prepared to fight. Don't be so fooled, Kiba, because Naruto has changed more than we know, Karina told herself from the balcony as she watched Kiba act like a complete idiot. Don't think I'm the same Naruto you knew at the academy, Kiba, because if you underestimate me, you'll regret it, Naruto told Kiba. Yeah, right, Naruto, prepare to lose, right? He stated confidently again. The match begins. Kiba quickly reviewed some hand signals and shouted, Beast imitation jutsu! His appearance was wilder and more animalistic, while Naruto showed no reaction, simply standing there, seemingly indifferent. This greatly annoyed Kiba, so he charged at Naruto with his newfound speed and delivered a simple slash over his head. Naruto watched him charge, and at the last second, he shifted so the blow landed on his shoulder. He quickly used one hand to grab Kiba and hold him there. Impressive strength and speed, Kiba, but physical blows are easy to stop. Then he glanced at Baki, who was watching from the stands with a smile. He's going to use one of my favorite lines, Baki thought as he rejoined the fight. But wind blades, on the other hand, are almost impossible to block, Naruto said with a wide grin as he raised his other hand and brought it down in a slashing motion. Wind blade! Naruto shouted as a wind blade sliced through Akiba, knocking him down right next to Akamaru. Looks like we need to get serious, Akamaru, Kiba said as his dog jumped onto his head and barked a human imitation jutsu. It vanished in a puff of smoke. As it dissipated, two extremely wild-looking Kibas stood before Naruto. They both charged toward him and leaped into the air, yelling, Getsuga! Fawn over Fawn technique. As their bodies transformed into spiraling claws and teeth, they lunged directly at Naruto, who swiftly performed several hand seals. Upon completing the signs, Naruto spun around, shouting, Original techniques, shield, wind sphere, as a swirling ball of wind appeared around him. When the two Kibas crashed into the sphere, they were knocked back against the back wall, and one of them disappeared in a puff of smoke, revealing an unconscious Kamaru. As he began to get up, Kiba noticed Naruto signaling again and assumed a defensive stance, trying to anticipate what the supposed last one might do to him. Naruto finished the hand signals and stared at Kiba without saying a word. Everyone on the balcony, except for the Yuga and Kulinai, understood what was happening, and Kiba understood it too. Back with Kiba, he realized that Naruto had cast a Jinjutsu on him, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't escape. The Jinjutsu had so far only darkened the world around him and blocked all his senses, so he expected Naruto to physically attack him at any moment. But that wasn't the plan, as Naruto, from outside, injected Kublai's chakra into the illusion and told the fox, Make the dog boy surrender. Don't hurt him too much, okay? The fox replied with a nod. But you're taking all the fun out of it. Back with Kiba, a red whirlpool had just appeared in front of him and was taking a shape he couldn't recognize at the time. The shape grew larger and then formed 9 tails. It was then that Kiba realized he was looking at the 9-tailed fox and panicked, quickly fainting while doing a very good imitation of Hinata, without blushing, of course. The boy fainted before he could do anything. __C. Kyubi informed Naruto as the supervisor announced Naruto as the winner. There was a cheer from 3 girls in the stands before they all blushed and clapped silently with the others. Before Naruto even went up the stairs, the next match was announced. Tenairos vs. Sabaki no Temari. The girls jumped down to the floor below. Well, actually, Temari floated down with her giant fan, but that's beside the point. They looked at each other, trying to guess what the other was planning. The match begins. Tenairos quickly unleashed a barrage of Kuna and Shuriken at Temari, who partially opened her fan and waved it, creating a gust of wind that sent the weapons flying. Now a dot appeared on the partially opened fan, and Temari noticed Tintin's questioning gaze. "When you see 3 dots, this fight will be over," she said, not with overconfidence, but with certainty. Tintin glared at her as she unleashed an even greater barrage of different weapons. "Is that all you can do?" Temari asked, opening the fan to reveal a second dot and sending the weapons flying. Tintin looked stunned and decided to play her trump card. Though she'd wanted to save it for later, this was a now or never opportunity, and she was going to seize it. She leaped high, unrolling 2 scrolls, one in each hand. As she spun, thousands of different weapons appeared and flew toward the San Kunoichi, who stood there watching in amazement. Then her gaze vanished as she fully opened the fan, revealing the final point. She began to swing it from side to side, deflecting all the weapons. Then she turned her attention to her opponent on the ground and shouted, "Wind side!" as she swung the fan again. This time, however, the wind filled the arena and began to make small cuts all over Tintin's body, slamming her against the wall and knocking her unconscious. Winner, Sabaka no Temari. Naruto and Sigure quickly jumped up along with Lee to check on Tintin as a medical team assessed her condition and helped her off the ground. Meanwhile, the next match had been announced, and everyone tensed up when they saw the 2 names on the board, Niji Yuga versus Inada Yuga. They both walked to the ground and took their stances, Niji with much more confidence than Inada. The match begins. They both ran towards each other and stood face to face as their bodies became a flurry of punches and slaps, ducking and dodging each other's attacks. It was like witnessing an intricate and deadly dance. Finally, they both stepped back when Niji landed a light blow on Hinata's right shoulder, causing her arm to fall limply at her side. "Why isn't her arm moving?" asked Naruto Ale, who was standing next to him. "It's her fighting style. It's known as Gentle Fist, while mine and Guy Sensei's are known as Brutal Fist. While our style focuses on breaking bones and bruising, theirs focuses on attacking from within. With each strike or slap, they inject a bit of chakra into the opponent, effectively attacking their organs. If they strike certain points on a person, they can also completely block the chakra pathways to that part of the body." Lee spoke as if he were giving a lecture. Naruto nodded in understanding and refocused on the fight. "You should give up on Inada," Meiji said, her voice trembling at his words. "I won't give up. I need to improve, and that's why I want to fight. You'll lose without even being able to attack me once you realize I am far superior to you in fighting style," she stated calmly. "So, if I'm going to lose, at least I'll go down fighting," Inada said with a firmness that surprised everyone, including Niji. He simply smiled smugly, and they charged again. In another flurry of devastating attacks, Inada fell unconscious, and Niji was declared the victor. As he climbed the stairs, he noticed something strange about his body and realized he couldn't move his left arm from the elbow down. He smiled. "You've changed a bit today." Yada thought the same as he climbed back up to the balcony. The last 4 were eager to know who they were fighting, and almost all of them smiled when they heard the next pair of names. Gaara only had a small, mocking smile on his face as he floated above a platform of sand. When he looked at his opponent, a look of surprise crossed his face as he saw him also floating toward the ground, but on a platform of chakra, not sand. "This is going to be interesting," Sabakanadra thought to Japista. They both remained there staring at each other, surrounded by a circle of chakra or sand. Both had their arms crossed in similar poses. The match begins. Both opponents threw their weapons at each other with precise strikes, but neither managed to penetrate the other. Suddenly, they both stopped their attacks and bowed to one another. "Oh!" said Naruto with a worried look on his face, which was shared by Timar and Kankuro. "What's going on?" everyone else asked. They were just testing each other when they bent over. They proved that the other was worthy of their full strength. And now things are going to get really crazy. he declared with an excited expression that wasn't shared by many others as they headed back to the game below. Gaara and JPO assumed new stances. Gaara held both hands at his sides, while JPO held his behind his back as if preparing to charge. They stared intently at each other, waiting to see who would make the first move. Suddenly, JPO placed both hands in front of him, sending a wave of chakra toward Gaara, who simply raised one hand in front of him, forming a wall in front of him. He blocked the chakra, but it also destroyed the wall as it crashed to the ground, creating a large cloud of smoke that engulfed it. When the smoke cleared, Gaara was forced to dodge a large mass that shot toward him, covered in chakra in the shape of swords. Turning around, he saw that the mass was happy, using chakra to create spikes that covered its body as it propelled itself toward Gaara. Gaara smiled smugly as he saw Jack off balance. Apparently, that move had left him dizzy right after using it. He quickly launched a mass of sand that swirled around Jack and began to lift him into the air. Just as he reached a few feet off the ground, the sand was blasted away by a burst of chakra. Seeing that the move had failed, Gaara created a clone made of sand, and together they sent a double blast of sand at Joppy, which quickly transformed into long spikes. Joppy swiftly created a slanted chakra shield that redirected the sand to the sides of him as he thrust his hands forward again, creating another furious blast of chakra toward Gaara. But the sand clone jumped in the way and took the blast. Both opponents stood there staring at each other again, not moving a muscle. Jap was silently sending thin tendrils of his chakra to every square of the arena in a last-ditch effort to defeat Gaara, who stood there smiling as if he had already won the match. When he felt he had created enough chakra points, he quickly pushed his hands to the ground and then swiftly raised them again as chakra spikes erupted across the arena, creating a massive cloud of dust from the sand-covered areas. When the smoke cleared, he felt a knife at his neck and saw that Gaara was floating on his sand platform above the spikes and had created another sand clone that had stealthily approached Jap and now held a sand knife to his throat. "I recognize my defeat," Jap once said. "It was an honor to fight you," Gaara replied as they both bowed to each other again. "Winner, Sabakuno Gaara." A stunned silence filled the arena. Naruto approached Gaara as he floated toward the balcony and put an arm around his shoulders. "Good fight, it was crazy," Igra said. He nodded in confirmation as the last two fighters jumped to the ground. Rugly versus Nissalin Saitsu. From now on, I'll call him Nissalin Sai, so don't get confused. Lee and Sai looked at each other, sizing each other up. He was trying to decide what kind of jutsu Sai would use when he heard Naruto shout at him. "Hey Lee, this is your fighting style because neither of us knows how to use ninjutsu or jinjutsu." He smiled at him and struck a friendly pose with his thumb up. They stared at each other. "You don't know how to use jutsu?" Lee asked nervously. When Sai nodded, he smiled broadly and his eyes flashed with fire. "Then let's show them the power of our youth in a great taijutsu match," he declared boldly. "Sounds good if you're willing to lose," Sai replied. The match begins. They charged at each other with similar attacks and blocks that flashed across each other's faces. They were almost exactly the same speed. "How about we raise the bar a bit?" Sai asked as he and Lee jumped back, ending up at the same distance. "What do you suggest?" Leo asked. "We're both carrying weights, so let's take them off and show everyone what we can really do." Lee looked at his sensei, who nodded and knelt down to remove his weights while Sai did the same. When they finished, they stretched and looked at each other again before nodding and disappearing at top speed. Loud thuds echoed through the arena, and holes appeared in various places as the fight continued, with almost no one able to keep up. Naruto had to channel chakra into his eyes to maintain the pace. Then, they both appeared in the middle of the arena at a standstill, gripping hands and pushing each other with all their might while kicking and spinning around, trying to land a blow they both knew would end the fight. Then Lee channeled chakra into his legs as a last resort to throw Sai off balance and surprisingly, it worked. While he was off balance, Lee swiftly kicked him into the air, appeared directly beneath him, and wrapped him with the bandages that encircled Leo's arms. The bandages fell to the ground, creating a massive crater and another cloud of smoke that engulfed the arena. When the smoke cleared, a battered Lee was seen helping an even more battered Sai out of the crater, as he officially declared that he had lost the match. "That was a very good match," Lee Sai told him. "Yes, it was, but next time I'll be the winner, so save me a rematch," Sai replied, smiling broadly as Lee Sai nodded. The Okaji stepped forward and said, "Congratulations to all the winners of today's matches. Those who lost simply for the sake of losing, it doesn't mean they won't become chunning, but they will have fewer opportunities to demonstrate the skills that would make them good chunning." He took a deep breath as the exam supervisor approached with a box that had a slot on top. "Each of you will reach into the box and take a card with a number on it. That number will determine who you will face in the final." When everyone had chosen a number and shown it to the supervisor, he said, "You will have 1 month off to prepare for your matches. They will discover who their opponent is, so everyone will use their best skills and demonstrate that they can be prepared for anything or improvise with great skill, qualities that a good shinobi must possess. You can leave now. We'll see you in a month at the finals." And with that, everyone left except for the Jinin. Everyone started leaving the tower when Shigeru stopped Naruto. Tenzin, Timar, and Amedna, who were nearby, saw this and approached to see if they could find out anything about Naruto's long-lost brother. "Hey, brother, we need to talk," Shigeru said as he blocked Naruto's path. "Are you sure about what you have to say?" was his response, and just as Shigeru was about to reply, the girls arrived, and an idea struck him. With a wicked smile, he started to speak, but Temari spoke first. "I just wanted to wish you a good match, Naruto, but I need to check on my brothers, so don't get into trouble without me, okay?" she said as she leaned down and kissed Naruto on the cheek. Then she turned and ran off, leaving Naruto stunned, Shigeru grinning and laughing, and 2 very angry kunoichi. "How about we talk about this over lunch, Naruto?" Shigeru asked after regaining her focus. "Yeah, that sounds good. Can we go to my favorite ramen shop and talk there?" Naruto replied, obviously oblivious to the smile on Shigeru's face. "Of course we'll order ramen, on one condition." Naruto looked at him with a knowing glance, while Shigeru turned to Amedna. "It's nice to see you again. We should have lunch sometime. Wait, how about you go out to eat with me and Tenten goes with Naruto?" she said casually. Naruto stood there, wide-eyed like an idiot. He obviously hadn't expected that, nor that both girls would blush furiously and nod. "Great, we'll meet at the ramen stand in 2 hours so everyone can clean up." And with that, he created another piece of ice and walked away, leaving a very stunned and blushing group behind him. A few hours later at the ramen shop. At the ramen shop, a few customers were having lunch before heading back to work. Their attention was drawn to the entrance as 4 people walked in. They first noticed the tallest of the group. Shigeru, 2 years older than everyone except Tenten, who was only 1 year older, wore a snow-white jacket with a blood-red undershirt and dark blue pants. On the back of the jacket was the symbol of the Yorinara clan, a bright blue eye surrounded by many rings of ice. At the point where they all met, the pupil was shaped like a multi-pointed star. The next to notice was Tenten, who was wearing a sleeveless, dark green silk blouse with a design of dancing, falling leaves. The leaves were dark red. She was also wearing a long green skirt that suited her perfectly. Her eyes then fell on the other woman in the group. Amedna wore a baby blue kimono with a violet eye in the center surrounded by what looked like a lightning storm. Ramu, Eye of the Storm. She was holding on to Shigeru's left arm, while Tenten held onto his right. When their gazes fell upon him, they transformed into cold stares and hateful smiles. Naruto wore a dark black jacket with a large orange swirl on the back. He had on a blue t-shirt and dark black pants. The 4 quickly found seats at the bar, and the owner approached to take their orders. Before the owner could ask, the rest of the customers got up and left, muttering about demon brats and how he should have died, confusing Shigeru and Ametna while Naruto bowed his head and Tintin tried to comfort him. Well, that was rude. What can I get you kids? Asked the owner. I'll have 2 bowls of pork ramen, Shigeru ordered. A bowl of miso, Tintin said. I'll have the same as her, Ametna said. I'll have 8 bowls of pork ramen, Naruto said, surprising the others with the amount. I'll be right there, said the owner as he walked to the back of the restaurant to start cooking his meals. Well, someone has to explain. What were those stares about, and why were they only looking at you, Naruto? Shigeru asked in a tone that indicated he wasn't going to stay silent. Naruto, you don't have to. Naruto interrupted Tintin, waving his hand. It's fine. If they're going to be near me and suffer because of it, they have a right to know. Then he turned to Ametna and Shigeru. Shigeru, brother, I know I only met you a few hours ago, but you're family, so you should know. And Ametna, I haven't known you for very long, but you defended me against Aruno, so I'll tell you too. Naruto took a deep breath. What do you know about our parents' deaths and the Ninetales? He asked Shigeru. Well, I know the Ninetales attacked this village and Dad sacrificed himself to kill it. Isn't that right? He asked. That's the story everyone hears, but it's not entirely true. Dad sacrificed himself in the fight against the Ninetales, but he didn't kill it. He sealed it inside a newborn child. That boy is me. The villagers don't see me as Naruto. They see me as the Ninetales, so they hate me with a passion. I just hope they don't underestimate me. After saying that, he returned to the counter and waited for their reactions. Shigeru spoke first. Then let me clarify this. You have a demon inside you that nearly destroyed this village. Your body prevents you from trying again, and the entire village, with a few exceptions, absolutely hates you. When Naruto nodded, he began to tremble with rage. That's it. You're coming with me to train in my village, meet your family, and get away from these spiteful villagers, he said as his chakra surged around him. Tintin looked at Shigeru with hearts in her eyes. So, beneath the pervert, you're a real man, she said as she walked over to Shigeru and hugged him, making him blush and stare at her in amazement. Ametna remained silent. Finally, she stood up without a word and walked toward the exit, which led her right behind Naruto, out of his sight. He lowered his head and was about to cry when he felt 2 hands grab him and spin him around. Before he could react, they kissed and quickly joined forces. When they finally separated, she smiled at Naruto and sat down, leaning against him. Well, we each started with one girl, and now we're done with the other. Though I'm not complaining, Shigeru said with a smile as he wrapped his arm around Tintin. Naruto could only nod. He was still in shock after that kiss. Tomorrow we're going back to my village and your house, so make sure you're ready, Shigeru told Naruto as the owner returned and placed the food in front of him. Naruto nodded and settled down to eat his ramen. Naruto and Shigeru left the next day with Okaji's permission. Near the end of the month, the day of the finals arrived. All the finalists were lined up in the center of the arena waiting for the first match to be announced. The Okaji, the Kekkaji, and the Ayakaji stood as the Okaji addressed the arena. Welcome to the Chunin Exam Finals. You've all gone through many trials to test your shinobi skills to get here. I'm sure you're all eager to continue your matches, so let the finals begin. Everyone turned to the supervisor as he began announcing the first match of the finals. The first match will be between Shigeru Uzumaki and Nijiri Yuga, and the first match of the Chunin Exam Finals has been announced. Both fighters stood there staring at each other. It's your destiny to lose this match, so give up and accept it, Niji stated confidently as he shifted into his stance and prepared for a serious fight. Idiot. It's not fate that decides anything. It's your own skill and determination that decide everything, Shigeru declared as he drew his dual kodachi and began gathering chakra. The match begins. Shigeru swiftly performed a cross slash across his chest, releasing an ice blade that hurtled directly toward Niji. Niji swiftly dodged the ice blades and began maneuvering toward Shigeru, dodging any blades the latter threw. Shigeru smiled smugly, confident of his victory. Damn, I didn't want to try this so soon, Shigeru thought, making a few gestures. When he finished, he rubbed his arms and chest with his hands and focused on Niji, who had just closed in. They immediately engaged in close combat, employing taijutsu and kijutsu techniques, where neither could penetrate the other's guard to inflict damage. Then, Shigeru attempted a wide slash to Niji's legs, but Niji swiftly leaped over the blades and delivered several blows to Shigeru's arm, disabling it almost to the wrist, thus preventing him from releasing Mikachi. They both quickly retreated and waited for the other to make a move. It's not over yet. You're within my divination trigrams, Niji declared as he shifted into a different stance, his left arm almost on the ground and his right raised high. Before Shigeru could react, Niji vanished and reappeared right in front of him, delivering 64 blows that killed him. I've blocked all your tenketsu, so you can't form chakra or move, so accept that fate has dealt you defeat, Meiji said and started to walk away, but stopped when he heard Shigeru's laughter. I knew you were an overconfident idiot, Shigeru said while still on the ground laughing. What's so funny? You can't move or attack. What are you laughing at? Niji asked, completely confused by this turn of events. Shigeru suddenly disappeared from the ground, and Niji felt a sword at his throat and another at his stomach. It's just that you talk about fate, but we all know that fate is uncertain. You were too confident, and now you'll lose like all the overconfident Yuga if you have to face me, Shigeru said. Then he went and knocked Niji out with the butt of his kogachi. All you Yuga out there, listen up. You're not the all-powerful clan you claim to be. Why do you ask? Because you're idiots who wouldn't recognize true power even if it were staring you in the face. I ask you, has any Yuga ever been nominated for Okaji? Or is a Yuga one of the legendary Sannin? The answer to both is no. They all stick to their taijutsu style and nothing else, which gives them another weakness besides the blind spot at the back of their necks. Inada Yuga, my little brother, I thought you were the only Yuga with a chance to become truly strong, but when you found out someone beat you to asking him out, you became just one of the others. You still have a chance to change, so think about this. And with that, he began to leave the arena. How can you move after my attack? Niji asked. Wait until I have to fight my little brother, and then you'll know, because I'll be forced to use the same technique again, unlike what I did with you, Shigeru replied as he finally left the battlefield. Shigeru Uzumaki was declared the winner. Everyone applauded after such a great fight and eagerly awaited the next one. Naruto Uzumaki versus Dosu. Naruto and Dosa headed to the arena below and each prepared themselves without saying a word or looking directly at their opponents. They simply stood there waiting for the match to begin. The match begins. Naruto quickly began making a long series of hand signals, but Dosa didn't plan to give him the chance to finish them as he charged forward and began unleashing a barrage of punches and sound attacks from his melodious arm. Naruto simply and calmly dodged each attack while continuing to make the hand signals and mentally counting. When he reached 200, he jumped back further than usual and slammed his hands against the ground, yelling, Fury of the Frozen Tundra! Snow quickly spread from his hands, beginning to blanket the entire field, and Naruto vanished from sight into the snow. Dosa started looking around as he trudged through the snow, hoping Naruto would appear from anywhere, when a massive wave of snow suddenly crashed down on him, hurling him deep into the snowdrifts. Funeral Tundra! He shouted. A voice called from somewhere among the mounds as the snow around him swirled and slowly dragged him deeper, crushing him beneath it with no room to breathe. He quickly fainted. The snow vanished completely, revealing a pleasantly relaxed Naruto standing there with a broad smile on his face. Naruto Uzumaki was declared the winner. Everyone was stunned at the thought of being last, but then Hinata started clapping, triggering a chain reaction of roars and shouts of approval throughout the stadium. As they cheered, the next match was announced: Sasuke Uchiha vs. Rogal. The two chosen fighters stepped onto the field. Sasuke looked at Lee and thought, "This is going to be a huge waste of time. He's not even worthy of facing an Uchiha." As Lee stretched and prepared for what he believed would be a good match, the game began. Lee charged swiftly towards Sasuke, who started gesturing with his hands, and then exhaled a massive fireball directly at Lee, who countered with a roundhouse kick, deflecting the fireball by adding a bit of chakra to the kick. Sasuke was surprised he'd managed it, but then he adopted a stance similar to Lei's and waited for him to approach. Naruto noticed Sasuke's posture and became angry, so he quickly walked over to Kakashi to tell him what he thought, closely followed by Guy. "How could you do that to Lee, Kakashi, you cow? You gave Sasuke the only thing he had and took it away from him." "That's why I hate the damn Sharingan. Everyone uses it to steal what others have," Naruto yelled at Kakashi. He already copied the style when he had that little skirmish with Lee before the exam started. Kakashi replied, "Your youthful power has deserted you, buddy, because we both know it's a lie. He only copied part of a move, but you opened your eye during the match between Aisai and then taught him the style." "I can't believe you did that," Guy declared, barely containing his rage toward his young rival as he called out to Kakashi. "I already told you." Kakashi was interrupted by a fist to the face that sent him flying into the nearest wall and knocked him unconscious. "That felt really good," Guy said as he lowered his fist. "Now let's go back and watch the game." "Hey Fox, you know about Lee's condition where he can't use any jutsu, right?" "Yeah." "So what?" asked the fox. "Well, can you do anything about it?" asked Naruto. "Well, there might be something." The fox began telling Naruto what he could do. Back in the match, Lee and Sasuke were engaged in a fierce taijutsu exchange in which Sasuke, with his Sharingan eye, had the advantage and was using every inch of it. He finally managed to land a solid blow on Lee, sending him skidding backward a few feet. "It's time I lived my life my way, Shinobi," Lee shouted as he charged chakra into his body, his face flushing red. "What's he doing?" Naruto asked. "Is he using the gates?" Shigeru said in amazement. "What are the gates?" Naruto asked. "Think of it as the flow of chakra. It travels through 8 different points in your body where it's restricted to prevent it from overwhelming your system. If you apply a large amount of chakra forcefully, you can open the gates effectively. If you open all 8, you'll gain immense power, but you'll die soon after," Shigeru declared sadly as he turned to observe the unfolding battle. He had just opened the 3rd gate when Sasuke attacked him with a Jinjutsu. Suddenly, Lee found himself alone in a forest. Suddenly, Tenten appeared, glared at him, and walked away. This news spread among all his acquaintances and loved ones, and he finally broke down in tears. "Stop!" he shouted, clearly indicating his surrender to Sasuke and the supervisor. When he opened his eyes, he found himself back in the arena, and he wept, knowing he had lost the match. "Lee!" some voices shouted as Tenten, Naruto, and Guy slowly descended to check on him, followed by Neji, who had woken up just at the end of the fight. "Lee, are you alright?" they asked as they watched him slowly get up. "I lost. I'm not good enough to be a shinobi," he stated, and they could see that he had lost all hope of living his dream. "I want you to do something for me, and if you do, I promise you'll achieve your dream," Naruto stated, causing Lee to look at him with barely concealed hope, while everyone else stared in shock at his statement. "What do you want me to do?" Leo asked. "Raise your arms and keep them there," Naruto said, placing a hand on his back and charging Fox chakra into it. Lee quickly raised his hands, and after a few minutes, Naruto punched him in the stomach with his charged hand, pushing the red chakra toward Lee, who fell to the ground in pain and then unconscious. "What the hell are you doing?" Guy and Tenten shouted as they tried to comfort him. "Neji, take a look at their chakra systems and tell us what you see," Naruto said calmly. "Well, I'll take a look, but we all know they're withered. That's why he couldn't use any jutsu at the academy or anywhere else. Now he looked at Lee with his Yakugan activated and remained silent, surprised for a few seconds. I don't think his chakra is fixed. He can use jutsu. I know his pathways are almost as large as yours, Naruto. Thank you, Naruto, for giving him back his youth. Guy shouted as he lunged forward and pinned Naruto in a death-defying embrace. Then they proceeded to remove Lu from the field as the next match was announced. Sabaku no Temari vs. Emmett Natrine. Both girls quickly jumped down to the floor below and slid into different positions. Temari stood with one hand raised in front of her and the other holding a closed fan behind her back, while Emekna stood sideways with one hand touching the ground and the other curled into a fist behind her back. The match begins! I'll show Naruto what a real girl can do! Temari shouted, quickly opening her fan and unleashing blades of wind at Emekna. Emetsa quickly made some hand gestures and struck the ground, creating a gigantic blue flower that sprang up in front of her, protecting her from the wind. Temari quickly opened the fan fully and began to shoot enormous gusts of wind at the flower, trying to pierce it without much success. Meanwhile, Kanemna made a few more signs, and a rose bloomed before her. She quickly grabbed the rose's stem, pulling it from the ground, revealing that its roots formed a whip with many small thorns running along its tip. Temari finally stopped unleashing gusts of wind, realizing it wasn't working, and decided to wait for her to come out and fight. Emechna lunged forward and began swinging the whip, launching thorns at Temari, who dodged them. When Emi saw that her usual approach wasn't working, she cast a few signals and lashed out with the rose again, releasing a single thorn that quickly multiplied into 1,000. Temari quickly hid behind her fan to escape the attack, then decided to charge all her chakra into a single strike. But as she began to gather it, she discovered that she was running out and couldn't move. Looking down, she saw vines entwined around her legs, holding her fast. Try as she might, she couldn't free herself. "Those are my specially prepared chakra vines," she said. "They quickly attach to the nearest chakra source and feed off it. They will never let go unless I touch them and mentally command them to. If I leave them with you, they'll devour all your chakra. Then, when they bloom, they'll devour your body too. So you might want to give up soon because you're almost out of chakra and they'll bloom in about 15 minutes. Emna said calmly, as if it wasn't a big deal that she was about to kill a girl just because she tried to pull Naruto away from her. "I give up, you win," Temari said softly. Emna quickly approached and removed the vines. "That was a good fight, though we should have a rematch sometime," Emna said, smiling at Temari, who simply smiled and nodded. Temari began to faint as a pair of arms caught her. "Winner, Natrine. I'm touched that you care so much about me, Temari-chan, but I'm sorry, I don't see you that way. I see you as a sister, so I'm sorry," Naruto said as she finally collapsed from exhaustion. He carried her to where Gaara and Kankuro were waiting, and they made sure she was alright. Meanwhile, the next match began. "What's up with Itori Anda?" The brothers quickly headed to the arena. "Well, Itori, I guess this will be our tiebreaker," Kei asked his brother when they reached the arena floor. "It seems so, but don't expect to win this one," Tori said, smiling at his brother's angry face. "The match begins." They both quickly reviewed some signs, but Itori finished first. "Sun Dragon's Tail," he shouted, launching his right arm toward Kei, and a scaly tail of light emerged and slammed into him. "Scales of the Moon Dragon," Kei shouted as his entire body was covered in black scales, giving him dragon armor that easily deflected the light attack. "I see you've gotten better at summoning that armor, brother," Torientra said as he went through a few more signs, and then his body was covered in scales made of light. "But so have I. Perhaps we should take this a step further," Ku asked. "What do you have in mind?" "Each of us has attacks that the other doesn't have an opponent for, so I propose we summon our swords and use only our original techniques, and the sword to finish each other off, because no one will win if we keep it like this. An unusually good idea of yours. Fine, I accept your challenge, but let's limit it to just one more technique and our swords. Deal, so let's begin. They both performed the hand signals for their weapons and shouted in unison. Blazing sun. Darkness that covers. On one side, bright light covered, while on the other, darkness enveloped him. When they revealed themselves, Atori was again holding the extremely long and thin light sword, while Kai had an extremely wide and thick, but short, black sword resting on his shoulder. I see your sword has changed from the weak and flimsy one it was before. Doesn't it have a special ability like mine? He asked Toriake. Yes, it does, and this will completely crush your pathetic wake eyes, Kei replied as he plunged his sword into the ground and dragged it along with him as he charged at Atori, leaving a gaping wound in his wake. Atori quickly raised his sword to defend himself and was shocked to find himself still being knocked back several feet from the impact. Insidious darkness! Kei shouted as the arena filled with shadows, and Atori could see nothing. So this is the jutsu you chose, huh, little brother? Good choice. It effectively limits what I can do, but I'm not out yet. He spoke to Tori in the darkness, knowing Kei could hear him. I'll win this. Kei shouted from somewhere in the darkness as Atori barely blocked another slash from Kei and received a small cut on his left leg. I suppose this darkness also blocks my other sense. Since I can't hear or feel anything at all, Toriantrus thought as he blocked another attack. An idea quickly came to him, and he adopted a different stance. When Kai attempted another attack, Atori barely blocked it and then spun his sword around Kai, pulling him close enough for Aori to grab his shirt. Prison of light, he shouted. A light quickly formed into a ball around Kei and began to shrink, crushing him from the inside. You should surrender. You can't escape that prison, and you'll die if you refuse any longer, Toriku told him. So that's the jutsu you chose, brother. Good choice, but you still lose, said a voice behind Atori as an enormous force struck him, sending him flying. Upon landing, he noticed the darkness had vanished and saw Ku standing there, wielding a sword 4 times larger than the one he had before. Why is your sword bigger, and how did you escape? He asked Tor, barely able to stand. It's one of my sword's 2 abilities. When yours improves, you'll gain a second ability. My sword's first ability is similar to yours. I transform into shadows and can escape anything. I can use it 5 times. The second ability is that it can absorb the darkness and shadows around it, increasing its size and power. So sorry, but you lose, brother, Kei said, holding the sword in front of him. Fine, you win. The score is in your favor, Toriantrus said, collapsing to the ground. Winner, Kanda Sabakuno. Gaara versus Shino Aburame. Gaara floated down to the arena below while Shino took his time descending the stairs. I am from the Aburame clan. I will not hold back against you, and I recommend you do the same. Let the match begin, Shino said as insects began to emerge from his sleeves and swarm around his body. Gaara remained silent as sand began to flow around him. Gaara quickly made some hand signals as Shin ordered his insects to swarm him. The insects had just reached him when he finished signaling, and a massive wave of sand rose up behind Gaara and crashed to the ground, sending a huge shockwave and sand flying all over the arena, effectively stopping the insects that Shino had sent. Shino quickly leaped to the nearest tree to get out of the sand and disappeared from sight in a swirl of insects. Kunai began to fly from different parts of the surrounding trees, aiming at Gaara. The sand surrounding Gaara quickly rose up to defend him, but with each kunai that struck, it became harder for him to maintain his balance. What's wrong? Why is my sand slowing down and not responding? Gaara thought as his sand fell around him, unresponsive to his chakra. Observing the sand around him, he finally noticed all the small insects crawling through it. I see you finally noticed my pod-eating beetles wandering through your sand. Now you can't do anything, And I know you're not very skilled at taijutsu, so accept your defeat, and I won't let my little friends eat the puddle straight from you," Shino said calmly as he jumped down from the tree right behind Gaara. Gaara nodded to Shino, acknowledging his defeat, and started up the stairs to leave the arena. Winner, Shino Aburame. Well, the first round was completed, so the final matches were posted on the board while the competitors rested and prepared for their next fights. Shigeru Uzumaki vs Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha vs Emmett Natrine, and Kianda vs Shino Aburame. After the match announcements, they were informed that they would have 1 hour of rest and that there would be no more breaks until the end of the finals, so they should make the most of it. An hour later, Shigeru and Naruto were in the arena preparing for battle when a massive explosion rocked the village. A plume of smoke rose from the Okaji's box and the west gate. Sound and Sand shinobi stormed into the village and began attacking the Leaf Ninja, with the exception of the Sand Trio. The remaining competitors quickly jumped into the arena and were about to run to help the village when a voice spoke from behind them. "It's been a while, Sasuke. My son," the voice said, causing everyone to turn and stare in shock as the entire Uchiha clan, except for Itachi and Sasuke, looked on with a kind of sonic boom in their heads and arms. "How are you all still alive? I thought you were all dead," she shouted to her father. "Orochimaru offered us a deal. If we joined his village when he attacked the Leaf, we'd have free reign to kill any demon we encountered. And there are 2 right in front of us, you know." Then he saw Megna. "Oh, and the last Ranyaku is among us too," he said, turning to her. "It's been a while since I've seen you. Do you remember me?" Emma asked. He shook his head cautiously. "I didn't expect you to. You were so young, and it was pitch black when I massacred your family in front of you. What a pleasure it was to defeat a rival clan capable of countering our Sharingan. Well, there's no way to describe it." She smiled happily as she watched his anger rise. She closed her eyes as they began to turn violet to avoid wasting chakra, but it was a mistake, as Alukia charged at her with a drawn katana. "Emmetna, watch out!" Naruto shouted, trying to get her attention, but she was trapped in her memories and couldn't move. She opened her eyes just in time to see the man in front of her begin to swing his katana at her. She knew she couldn't dodge it, so she closed her eyes and tensed against the pain, but suddenly she felt a pair of arms wrap around her and flinch from the impact. "Em-chan," a voice whispered in her ear, causing her to open her eyes and find herself staring at Naruto's face. "Why?" she asked. "Because I love you. I know that as a demon I don't deserve love, but I love you and I would never let anything happen to you. So I thank you for being kind to me. Goodbye, Mem," Naruto said as he smiled and collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath. "Damn it! Stay alive a little longer, kid. Please, just a little longer," the fox whispered in his head as Naruto began to faint. "Naruto!" Emna and Sigurd shouted when they saw him fall. Naruto heard this and smiled as the world went dark. Opening his eyes, he saw a white ceiling. "Hospital is nice," he thought as he groaned, attracting the attention of the 2 occupants of his room. "Naruto, are you awake? Quick, go find Tsunade," Emna said as Shigeru hurried out of the room and returned a few minutes later with Tsunade. "Well, at least you're awake," he said. "How am I still alive? I know I was hit in the stomach and passed out, but what happened?" Naruto asked as he tried to sit up and realized his body was numb and he couldn't move. "And why can't I move?" "Well, when you passed out, Shigeru and Emekna, along with some others, flew into a rage and kicked most of the Uchiha, much to Sasuke's disappointment. However, the rest fled right after Orochimaru escaped with his arms disabled. He was injured in the fight when Jiraiya and I went to help Sarutobi in his battle. As for why you're not moving well, you're not fully healed, and we have a problem. We can't heal you because if we gather our chakra to heal you, demonic chakra erupts from your body, preventing us from approaching you unless we're family. Shigeru doesn't have enough medical skills to perform the operation, so we're kind of stuck, he explained. So basically you can't help me, and for some reason the fox can't either, so I'm just going to die from internal bleeding. He asked, then cursed when he saw Tsunade nod and the others look sad. That's not going to happen, Naruto, a voice said from the doorway. And who the hell are you? Tsunade shouted as the woman entered. Upon seeing her, Shigeru collapsed to the floor and began to back away, sobbing. I must be dreaming. How can you be here? You're supposed to be dead, she demanded, lying on the floor, tears of sadness and joy streaming uncontrollably from her eyes. Naruto finally got a good look at her as she approached his bed. Her long, brown hair was either tied back in a ponytail or flowed down to her feet. She was as tall as Tsunade and had roughly the same taste. However, what was most striking about her were her piercing blue eyes. When she reached Naruto, she gathered green chakra in her hand and passed it through his body, effectively healing him. I repeat, who are you? Tsunade asked again, but not as forcefully because she had just healed Naruto when no one else could. My name is Kaname Urimaru. I am Shigeru and Naruto's mother. Naruto stared at the woman, his jaw agape. It was Shigeru who first regained his composure and hugged her tightly. I thought you were dead where you were, he cried between sobs. I died when your father made that seal. The only reason I'm here is that something happened to the seal recently, and now I'm back. So I ask you, Naruto, what happened to the seal? He asked, running his hand through Shigeru's hair. Wait a second, and I'll ask the fox, Mom, Naruto said, giving his mom one of his signature foxy grins. Just as he was about to ask the fox, his mom remembered something. Oh, and Naruto, I just wanted to tell you how proud I am of you for being the hero of this village. While you were messing around with the Kubi, it's good to have a village that supports you, isn't it? She asked with a smile that vanished when she saw the faces of Amenna, Shigeru, and Naruto. Tsunade remained neutral, as she knew absolutely nothing about his life. Why are you looking at me like that? After all, he was the village hero? She asked, annoyed and worried by the stares directed at her. It was Naruto who broke the silence. Village hero. How ironic. Considering all the elders know me as the Leaf Demon, because they can't see beyond the fox. They hate me with a passion here. Only a few people see me as an idiot, and most of them are here right now. Oh, and Mom, I'd like you to meet my girlfriend, Emetrin of the Hidden Grass, he said with a smile after the pain of being alone had left him. It's a pleasure to meet you. Wait. What? The village made what sounded like a scream. I'm going to see look at Shigeru. Come with me. I don't know the way, she said. And then she and Shigeru left, followed by Tsunade. Emetra to Naruto. I'm so glad you're alright. I was so worried about you. So what happened after I fainted? Well, I don't know how to put this, but you basically massacred the Uchiha clan again. What do you mean? He asked nervously. Okay. And a flashback. Amenna simply watched as Naruto fell lifeless to the ground, as far as she could tell. Shigeru, standing beside her, flew into a rage and began massacring anything with a sound headset within reach, while Naruto's other friends joined in. Amenna simply drew her body close to his and wept for 10 minutes. Meanwhile, the Goku moved to defeat his second demon. Gaara was stunned when Shikaka tried to break free once more. Gaara was too distracted by his internal struggle to notice Fugoku approaching. This is almost too easy, he thought as he stabbed the defenseless Gaara. Just as the sword was about to strike its target, Shikaku shuddered and didn't move. Fugu looked around for the cause when he noticed. Don't ask how he didn't see it. A red hand covered in chakra protruding from his stomach. The hand quickly withdrew, and he felt a kick that sent him crashing into the wall, knocking him unconscious. Amenna could only watch in astonishment as Kai Naruto turned his fury on the nearest people wearing sound headbands and tore them to shreds. Naruto used all his willpower to prevent Kyuubi from attacking his friends, but he was quickly losing the battle when the last sound shinobi, along with a severely injured Fugoku and the rest of the surviving Uchiha clan, disappeared over the nearest wall and out of sight. Kyuubi then turned his gaze toward Naruto's friends. "Naruto, are you alright?" Shigeru asked cautiously as he advanced. "Naruto is gone. Only Kyuubi remains, you foolish mortal. I'll kill you all," Kyuubi declared as he slowly moved forward when a pair of arms wrapped around his waist in a full embrace. "What are you doing? Let me go, you bitch!" he roared as he tried to break free from Mechna, who slowly brought her head close to Naruto's ear and spoke 5 words. "I love you, Naruto," she whispered in his ear, and the red chakra vanished, leaving an unconscious Naruto who once again collapsed to the ground. "In the flashback, so I killed him," Naruto said as he sat there listening to the end of the story. "No, the damn fox killed him, not you. So don't hate yourself for that. Do you hear me, Naruto-kun?" she said fiercely, looking him straight in the eye. But he interrupted her when she kissed him to silence him. He was surprised that she still wanted to be close after all. He quickly returned the kiss, pulling her on top of him, and they began to kiss for real. That was the sight Jiraiya, Tsunade, Shigeru, Tenten, Kaname, and the third Hokage saw upon entering the room. After a few astonished minutes, during which Jiraiya quickly pulled out his notebook, only to have Tsunade snatch it away and tear it to shreds, they finally made their presence known. Of course, in the most embarrassing way. "Whoa, little brother," Shigeru said, grinning from ear to ear, a smile that quickly shifted to a look of pain when Tenten kicked his family's jewels. Jiraiya, who had been trying to pull out another notebook, quickly joined him on the ground. "So how's it going, brother?" Shigeru asked as he stood up, wearily watching Tenten. Once Naruto recovered from the attack, his face took on a dreamy expression, and all he could manage was, "Fine." Everyone laughed, which made them blush even more. As the laughter subsided, Naruto noticed the third Hokage was bandaged. "What happened, old man?" he asked. Sarutobi quickly explained that Orochimaru had impersonated the Kekkiji and attacked him. In the end, Sarutobi wounded Orochimaru, but couldn't finish him off, so he escaped once again. There was silence for a while until Jiraiya remembered why they had come. "Hey kid, what did the fox say?" he asked. "I don't know. I was too busy to ask him," he said shyly, which made everyone laugh again. "Hey Furball, are you there?" he asked the fox, but got no answer, so he decided to enter his mind to talk to him face to face. Mindscape. Naruto quickly found himself in front of the fox's cage, but it was strangely empty. He started walking forward when he heard someone crying, so he forgot all caution and rushed toward the cage. After running around in the dark for a while, he came across a red-haired boy sitting there crying. "Hey, are you okay?" Naruto asked as he climbed down and sat beside him. The boy looked at him fearfully before speaking. "Are you here to hurt me?" Sozo asked, which almost broke Naruto's heart, so he quickly hugged the boy. "No, I'm not going to hurt you." "That's good because I'm going to hurt you," the boy yelled as Ninetales jumped up behind him and wrapped around Naruto, holding him in place as his body slowly merged with Naruto's, causing them both to scream in pain, though Kyuubi laughed the whole time. Out of the "What's wrong with that brat?" Jiraiya asked impatiently as everyone waited for Naruto to snap out of his rage and tell them what had happened. Perhaps the fox and Tsunade were quickly interrupted when flames of blue and red chakra rose from the bed and began clashing for control of the body. It was a clash of wills that Naruto couldn't afford to lose. For hours later, the chakra waves were still clashing when they responded and collided in a final collision that sowed dust and smoke throughout the room, obscuring everything. Emeto was trying to see something through the smoke when a shadow emerged from the bed where Naruto lay. "Is that you, Naruto?" he asked, drawing everyone's attention as the shadow approached. The figure emerged from the smoke, revealing itself. He had long blonde hair that reached his knees, with red streaks scattered randomly through it. He still had his piercing blue eyes and had lost all the fat from his face, leaving it very defined and extremely handsome, not gay. The whisker marks on his cheeks had disappeared. His body had also changed, leaving him with a defined abdomen and muscles all over his body, giving him the lean and muscular appearance that Sasuke's fans so desired. But what caught everyone's attention the most was that he was completely naked, causing them all, including Tsunade and Kaname, to collapse with their noses full. When they stood up, he looked at them and smiled, making Amenaza's heart stop. "Hey guys, it's still me. I defeated that bastard fox and he's gone for good," he finally declared, revealing that this was still their Naruto, which caused them all to jump on him and hug him, crying and sobbing as they told him how worried they were. Meanwhile, Jiraiya had taken out his notebook again, and Sigurd was giving him advice for his next book, provided he received one of the first copies. A few days later, the third Hokage announced to the entire village that Kyuubi had died, and that Naruto had finally defeated it. However, upon seeing Naruto with his new appearance, they distrusted him and continued to hate him. The council, in particular, feared that if he became Hokage, he would seek revenge against them for everything they had put him through. The third Hokage also announced his resignation, and that Tsunade would become the fifth Hokage, a decision met with loud cheers and shouts of approval. During the 2-week break before the exams resumed, Naruto trained to get used to his new body and all the chakra he had acquired from the fox. In the middle of one of these training sessions, an old friend from the snow appeared. "Hey Naruto, is that you? I like the new look," said a voice behind Naruto. "Chu, is that you?" he asked, taking in his friend's appearance. The young man was about 16 years old, with spiky white hair like Tuiro de Bleach, and carried a sword strapped to his waist with a dragon-shaped hilt. "Yes, it's me who wants to train. I still owe you one from when you visited me. Oh, and before I forget, these are for you for your official acceptance into the Shiroyuki clan of Ice Kenjutsu," he said, pulling 2 boxes from a scroll in his vest and handing them to Naruto. "Of course I'll train, but first let's see what we have," he said, taking the first box and opening it, revealing a long, curved kodachi with an ice blue blade. It had a blood-red hilt with a design of a fox running around it, as if trying to catch its tails. "What's it called?" Naruto asked, holding the sword in amazement. "That's for you to decide. All swordsmen receive their first sword or swords. In your case, you give them their own names," Kaya replied. "I see. Let me see the next one, and then I'll decide," he said, sheathing his sword and slinging it over his shoulder. Then he grabbed the other box and gasped. Inside was another kodachi, but this one had a golden hilt designed with clashing flames and ice. The blade was golden with the design of a blue-scaled dragon that swirled to the tip, where its mouth was open and spewed forth the gilt that formed within it. Naruto quickly added some chakra, and the dragon began to glow and spin around the sword, a jet of blue flame appearing at its tip. "I think I'll call the first one Sly Fox and the second Dragon Honors," he said as he placed both on his back. "Well, I won't use my sword for this training because you're new to Kenjutsu, but after the training and over the next few days, I'll personally teach you how to use them," Kaya said as he assumed the standard Ice Storm battle stance, similar to that of the Konoha and Biyu. Naruto quickly adopted a similar stance, and they both vanished. The sounds of blows echoed across the field as they engaged in a basic taijutsu battle, in which they seemed to have the upper hand. At the start of the fight, Sasuke had been walking across the field and heard the sounds of the battle, so he approached to see if he could copy anything. Noticing him, Koru and Naruto jumped apart. "Hey, they're just ice jutsus, so a little bird can't copy them." "Okay?" Koru asked, placing his hands in front of him to prepare for his jutsu. "Sounds good," Naruto replied, mimicking the action. Then they began forming hand seals at incredible speeds, but the more experienced Koryu was faster. The swallow snowstorm screamed as snow formed behind him, taking the shape of thousands of swallows, and fired at Naruto, who had just finished off his own. Glacier W Rush roared as a wall of him appeared in front of him. He quickly clung to it as he suddenly slid forward, blocking the swallows and crashing into Kaya, tearing through shards of ice. He screamed as ice spikes appeared in front of him, blocking and piercing the wall where Naruto stood, sending him flying. Naruto recovered quickly, just in time to see Korra slam her hand into the ground. Summoning technique, Ice Maiden, she shouted as the ice rose 15 meters into the air. "You summon me, master," said the ice as it took the form of a scantily clad woman that would make Jiraiya drool. "Don't kill him, but freeze that man over there," she said, pointing at Naruto, who was still standing there in shock at the sight of the 15-meter-tall woman. "As you wish, master," said the woman as she turned and breathed toward Naruto, who couldn't move in time and suddenly found himself encased in a block of ice except for his head, which spun around and glared at Koryu, declaring that she would kill him if she had the chance. As the woman disappeared. "Fine, you win. Get me out of this," Naruto yelled at Koryu, who just smiled and quickly interrupted him. "So you lost, Adobe. You knew you weren't that good," Sasuke said as he walked toward them. "Shut up. I kicked your ass, remember?" Naruto replied, which enraged Sasuke. "You only did that because you took me by surprise," he said in his usual arrogant style, much to Naruto and Koru's annoyance. "What are you afraid of?" said a voice behind Sasuke as he turned to face Naruto while the other vanished, revealing that it was just an afterimage, much to Sasuke's disgust, who decided at that very moment to punch Naruto. But his fist was intercepted, and he soon found himself face first into a tree with Naruto standing calmly there. After throwing him, Sasuke attacked again, but Naruto vanished faster than his Sharingan could see. A punch slammed into his stomach, followed by a kick to the face that sent him flying back into the same tree, knocking him unconscious. "Well, now that we're done bothering you, let's begin your training." And with that, they drew their swords and the torture began. Exam day. Chunin. Shigeru Uzumaki versus Naruto Uzumaki, the supervisor announced as the brothers headed to the field and slid into their positions, both with their Kodachi swords drawn. "So you think you can't beat me, brother?" Shigeru asked. "No, I know I can beat you, but I also know you won't make it easy," Naruto replied as Shigeru nodded in confirmation. The match began, and with that, the two brothers charged at each other in a battle they both enjoyed. The sounds of steel against steel echoed throughout the stadium as the brothers fought each other in an intricate dance of kenjutsu that left Team 7 in awe that Naruto could display such a level of skill. Although Sakura and Kakashi still didn't think he'd be able to beat Sasuke, they knew it would at least be a good fight. Naruto should have won the battle of the Valley of the End, just like he won the fight in the hospital. On the field, it was becoming increasingly obvious to both fighters that this fight wouldn't be decided by jutsu. It would have to be about who could react to the other's techniques quickly. So, they both pushed each other, having the same idea, while making identical hand signals and shouting at the same time. Ice Style, Glacier Battlefield. Sasuke grew enraged once more at his inability to copy these techniques, as he watched in awe as glaciers rose up behind both combatants and crashed into each other, obscuring the fights from view, except for the Yuga, who took on the role of commentators for those around them if they so desired. In the midst of this ice and snow storm, Shigeru was secretly constructing his ice dome, hoping to trap Naruto, when a Naruto suddenly appeared and punched him in the face, sending him flying backward and dissipating the dome technique. Naruto smirked smugly until Shigeru vanished in a puff of smoke, revealing himself to be a clone. He quickly began looking around until a dome rose up around him, trapping him, as Shigeru confidently emerged from a huge chunk of ice. "Thought you had me, huh, little brother?" he asked, grinning as the glaciers around him melted, revealing a cocky Shigeru, an ice dome, and Naruto leaning against the wall on the other side of the field, holding a handful of about 20 rocks. "You thought you had me, huh, bro?" Naruto retorted mockingly as he watched his brother dispel the techniques, and turned to face him. "So what are you going to do with the rocks, bro? Throw them at me or something?" "That's exactly what I'm going to do, you idiot." He grabbed 3 of them and hurled them directly at Sigurd, who stood there with his arms crossed, completely unconcerned. Just before he struck, he dodges to the left and smirks smugly until he hears 3___ fire behind him. He spins around and is kicked in the jaw, sending him flying upwards to receive a double axe kick to the face, slamming him to the ground. Shiger emerges from the hole more__, than he has in a long time and charges straight at Naruto, gesturing with his hands for his second favorite jutsu, intending to end the fight. Naruto continues throwing clones at his brother before they all run away, watching as his brother leaps high into the air and punches his little brother. "Ice Fox Fist!" he yells as his signature Ice Fox roars straight at Naruto, who had started gesturing with his hands by pounding the ground with his palms. "Magic Ice Cylinder!" he shouted as 2 cylinders appeared before him. The one on the left stopped the attack, and the one on the right sent it back at Shiger, who was grateful for gravity at that moment as he fell under the blast. Upon landing, the 2 brothers stared at each other for a few moments before nodding and beginning to make identical gestures again. Ice armor of the inner beast soul. They screamed as ice grew from their feet, giving them nearly identical armor. Shiger wore blood-red armor similar to that worn by ancient samurai, with a helmet that resembled a wolf with its mouth wide open, ready to attack. Naruto wore golden armor with the same design as Shiger's, but his helmet had a fox's head with a malicious grin. "The most powerful single-shot attack?" Naruto asked, to which Shiger nodded. They both drew their swords and began charging all their chakra and armor into it. Once the armor vanished, they both raised their swords above their heads as they unleashed their final attacks of the fight. "Enerbia's Rampage!" they both shouted as a red wolf made of puddle water shot out of Shiger, while a golden fox emerged from Naruto. They began to fight tooth and nail in the center of the arena as Shiger and Naruto closed their eyes, using their focus to power up their beasts. In the end, only one could remain, and with slightly more puddle water than the other, the fox knocked down the wolf and struck Shiger in the chest with its claw before vanishing, signaling the end of the match. Winner, Uzumaki Naruto. The 2 competitors approached each other and shook hands as they walked back to the stands, with the entire Kono cheering after a great match. Even though everyone was angry that the Demon Kid had won, they thought the Uchiha would quickly take down Tachik and then defeat the Demon Brat. Could Sasuke Uchiha and Amenna Trini come onto the field now? Amenna gave Naruto a quick kiss on the cheek before leaping towards Sasuke, who waited arrogantly, thinking this fight would be over in a minute, 2 at most. Amenna versus Sasuke Uchiha. Don't expect a long fight because you'll be disappointed if you do. "I'm going to kill you quickly," Emna screamed as she ran toward a tree, and to everyone's surprise, she plunged into it and disappeared. Sasuke waited patiently for a few minutes to see what she would do before gathering his courage and firing a large fireball at the tree she had hidden in. As soon as he did, branches began to sprout from all the trees in the arena, connecting them to each other and forming a structure similar to the ice mirrors Aku used. Sasuke watched as his fireball barely caused any damage before he found himself entangled in vines that held a group of wood clones emerging from the branches. Emekna stealthily approached the struggling Uchiha from behind and knocked him out with a swift blow to the back of the neck, enraging the entire audience because Uchiha would not have the opportunity to kill the demon. Winner Natrine. The next match will be Kanda versus Shino Agurame. Can the competitors enter the arena now? The announcer shouted as he awaited the end of the semifinals. Well folks, that's all for now. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. Leave a like, share, and subscribe.